Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Kartik. I'm one of the co-founders of ETH Global, and welcome to HackMoney 2021. Now, all of you are watching this from ethglobal.tv. And for those of you who haven't been on this website before, this is the interface we use for all of our summits and our talks and our events. And I just wanted to quickly give everybody an overview of how everything works. You're watching this thing live. This is not recorded. Anything you type in the chat, we'll be able to read and reply to. We're going to host a lot of content today, whether there's talks, interviews, workshops. And as these panels and talks happen, if you have any questions for our speakers, you can simply log in and ask your questions on the chat, and we'll be able to relay them to our speakers directly. When we're taking breaks, you get to enjoy our radio. And for everybody who signs in, you'll be getting POAP NFTs to prove that you actually participated at this event. So be sure to take a minute, log into your profile, and sign in and say hi to all of us. So with that said, this event is organized by ETH Global. And for those of you who don't know, ETH Global is an organization with a very simple mission. Our goal is to onboard thousands of developers into the Web3 ecosystem. And we primarily do this by running hackathons and summits. So this event is no different. We're going to be running a summit today and for a few more weeks. We have 3 summits planned for the entirety of this month. We're going to have a summit on MEVs, and we're hosting another summit on the Uniswap grants program and the progress that they've made since the beginning of the program. And today is our kickoff summit, where we have a few talks from some amazing speakers, and we'll be covering everything from what is happening with DeFi on the regulatory side to some interesting macroeconomics on crypto, and security best practices for auditing smart contracts and everything in between. Now let's talk about the hackathon. Some of you are joining us the second time for HackMoney. What's super interesting about all of this is that HackMoney, the very first version of it, started in 2020, just about 12 months ago. We brought together 350 people to work on some interesting projects, and we didn't know what would happen. This was right at the beginning of us trying things out online, and we were absolutely blown away by the amazing projects that came out of it. These are some of just our amazing and interesting highlights. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of these companies already. They've come up from our hackathons to now successful protocols in this space to some incredible products. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. These are just 9 out of the 120 projects that came out of the event. And we can't wait to see what HackMoney 2021 would look like. So this really brings us to our second version of it. From 350 people to almost 3x the size. This event absolutely blew us away. This is by far our biggest event ever. We have over 975 staked hackers that will be participating over the next 3 weeks. We have over 500 summit attendees for just this week's summit. And the hackers that are going to be participating are coming in from 75 different countries and 18 different time zones. This is just a map of where everybody's joining us from the rest of the world. And it just blows my mind that we have so much diversity and so many different perspectives and so many interesting people that are going to be participating at HackMoney 2021. On top of that, we also have over 170 mentors. These are some of our partners. These are some of our on-staff mentors who are going to be there to help you with anything technical, design, or protocol-related questions, whether it's a Solidity bug or you want to get advice on how to use a certain protocol. We have so many incredible people waiting to just help you on our Discord. And we have support from 50 amazing companies in our space. These are protocols, projects, products, foundations, incredible names and partners from the DeFi ecosystem that are just waiting to talk to everybody here. And to top it all off, we now have over $300,000 in prizes that'll be given as part of different sponsors and integrations and various sort of tasks as we have planned for the rest of the hackathon. So the most common question we've been getting from everybody who's joining us for the first time is, what can I actually build? Is 3 weeks enough? Do I need to have really specific skill sets? What am I just learning something right now? And kind of the answer is that there's so much more that you can do in that time. And kind of from looking at all the excitement that everybody's put in and talked about in their applications, there are so many applications for lending, DEXs, trading, options, derivatives, NFTs that you can play with, whether that's building some new primitives or integrating existing primitives or using some of our protocols to now piece together and make more composable products. You can do so much more in yield hacking and optimizations, whether that's making something more stable or more fixed to optimizing the yields by doing arbitrages. There's so much more in just that sector alone. And it's not just that you have to do everything in protocol development or only stick to writing code in Solidity. You can do so much more on analytics. You can design dashboards to retrieve data or better represent information that's already on there on chain to design products that let others use these protocols without having too intricate of a knowledge of how something works under the hood. And that's just on the most obvious side. There's also opportunities to do integrations on zero knowledge side, whether that's adding privacy or adding some sort of composability, whether that's integrations with rollup or other layer 2 protocols. And there's a lot more you can also do on building developer tools so others can also do this thing in the future a lot more easily. So these are just some of the high level categories. There's so much more we have to talk on all of this as a topic, and we'll be there over the next week just to really showcase some interesting themes and ideas and brainstorm with you what else is possible. So the way this is set up is that I want to take the next 15 minutes and talk about the logistics for the hackathon. And then we have some information about our prizes. And then immediately after that, we'll be able to jump right into our summit talks and then we get back to hacking. So what I want to cover is how team formation works. This is the most common question we've gotten. People are looking for teams. People are looking to join others to either work on an idea or bring on others to build the idea that they already have in mind. Over the next few weeks, what happens if you are still learning and how you can get help. All the prizes you can win, what's the structure and how all the talks and workshops work, how the judging is going to work for the hackathon, and then also how the summits are structured, including today. So the most important piece here is that all communication for this event is going to be on our Discord. What this means is we're minimizing as many opportunities to do something live, with the exception of judging this particular video right now, and all our closing ceremonies in July. Everything will be done asynchronously, and that means to manage all the time zones, to manage all the communications, to manage all the help that we need to either provide or check in on. All that happens via Discord. For everybody who is staked as a hacker, you will see an option to click on Discord and join and connect your Discord to our channel, and that'll give you access to all the private channels for HackMoney. And this means that anybody who is under the HackMoney header on your Discord is part of the event, and you get to talk to everybody there, whether those are our sponsors or protocols or our mentors, or see information about the event or judging. Just everything that you want to know is going to be on Discord. So please make sure you have access to it. Please make sure that you can see the HackMoney 2021 header. And if you can't, ping anybody on Discord on the global team or email us, and we'll be able to help address that. On top of all of that, there are a lot of talks and workshops that are happening. Some already have happened and started over the past few days. There's more over the next few weeks. We're sending a calendar invite for all of those events to everybody who is hacking. And this means that it will show up on your calendar. You get to quickly click on a link and join those conversations and ask anywhere from questions to participate. And if you forget where the calendar invites are, you haven't received it yet, you can always go onto the event website and just see the full schedule immediately and join anything from there. We want this to be as asynchronous as possible, which means that if something doesn't work because of your time zone, that is completely okay, because we are going to be recording all of that and making it available for you to consume immediately after. And all that is available on defi.ethglobal.co. This has all of our event schedule. This is all the list of the partners that we're working with and all of the prizes you can win and how to get in touch with anybody on the ETH Global team. So now the question is, how does the hackathon work? We talked about just communication. We want to highlight some of the rules for this event. Before I get to the rules in more detail, the gist of it is that the hackathon begins right now, which means as of me saying this sentence, you can start working on your projects and you can have up to 5 members on your team. And you get the next 2.5 weeks to submit your hacks. That 2.5 weeks ends up being July 5th. So you have almost 3 weeks just to work on anything, get feedback, get any help, or show us what you've been iterating on and really refine from an idea to a working prototype in the course of almost 3 weeks. In the rules and criteria for being an eligible participant to win a prize or just be considered a hack are fairly straightforward. Anything that you are going to be submitting must be done over the course of this hackathon, which means that all work must start today and span the next 2.5 weeks. All the submissions that you are going to do to work on must be related to DeFi on specifically Ethereum. And if you have not RSVP'd on our dashboard, you will not be eligible to win any prizes. So it's really important that if you are working with a team, that all of your team members are listed on your team officially through our dashboard. And if that hasn't happened yet, or if they're not showing up, please ping anybody on the global team so we can really help you address that, because we really do have to make sure that everybody is a qualified candidate and everybody is following the exact same rules. And then the broader question is, well, what if I'm new to all of this? There's a lot of you who already came in with ideas. There's a lot of you who only wanted to work on DeFi in this space, but did not specifically know what they want to hack on. And I just want to tell everybody that that is completely okay. You don't need to have something immediately figured out, and you don't have to have an idea already ahead of time. There's a few hundred of you in that situation, and this is expected. This is normal, and we have a lot of things that we do to help address that. The first and the biggest comment I want to make is you get to head over to find a team channel on your Discord, and you can see everybody else who is looking for teammates or looking to join a team with a certain skill set. So if you're looking for a designer or a smart contract developer or a front-end developer, you get to ask and talk about what you're working on, or what would you like to work on, or what you are able to do, and find others who can work with you for that project. On top of that, you get to also use the slides we've made for finding team members. Those are constantly being updated by everybody who's in that position, so you can see who's still looking for a team, who's already found a team, and on top of all of that, aside from just being on the Find a Team channel, you can also introduce yourself in the HackMoney chat, where you have 1,000+ people just waiting to say hi to you and give you help on anywhere from refining an idea to understanding if something is possible as you think about all of this, and really engage with people from 70+ countries that are participating at this event. And lastly, even if you don't have an idea, or you know that you can do certain things for a team, we have a couple more opportunities to join a team formation call later today and also on Monday. So time zones aside, if you were able to make any of these calls work today or on Monday, you get to come on live on a Zoom call and talk to others who are also looking for team members. And really kind of find them and talk to them in real time. That specific call is not going to be recorded, so if you are able to make it, you would have to be there live. But because it's later on in the day, if you are not able to make it due to time zones, the one on Monday will be early, so we can accommodate for all the other time zones. And all that aside, I also want to highlight that you don't necessarily need to have a team. It's absolutely beneficial if more than one person is doing all the work and sharing the load, but it is completely okay to just pick something for yourself to learn and work on for the next few weeks. But you don't have to necessarily find somebody to be eligible to participate in this event. It is completely okay to hack solo. Lastly, on talks and workshops, whether it's the summit talks or some of the workshops on how to use specific protocols, there's a whole spectrum of content for all the levels of experience in this space, whether you're a beginner or you're an expert. We have so many opportunities over the next 3 weeks to share what's happening in this ecosystem, not just DeFi, but also broadly in Ethereum. And you can attend any of those from our event schedule. You should also already have calendar invites. For those of you who are watching this thing that are not hackers, these are still all public talks. So you can immediately watch them on YouTube because everything is recorded. And if you're wondering how to think more about the events or you have more questions on whether the talks or how team formation works or what are some rules and criteria for this event, you can head over to the info center that all of you can find on your dashboard to get all those details in all those explanations, a lot more details. And just one more time, all of that is public and available on defi.ethglobal.co. So you can see each of the talks on the schedule. You can click, you can sign up for the summits and be notified over email as we announce and we're ready or we near the next event. And any talk that's already happened can be found on the website with a link to the recorded YouTube. Now, one of the most important pieces of all of this experience are the check-ins. So there's all about 1,000 of you that are participating at the hackathon, which means that there's a lot of stuff that's happening asynchronously. And we have this check-in system to really stay on top of what's happening for this entire event for just the global team and for our mentors to really help you get unblocked. So check-ins happen once a week. So you'll have 2 to 3 check-ins for the course of this event. And what happens in a check-in is fairly straightforward. We just ask you what you're working on and what did you do last week or since the last check-in. And you can write a couple sentences there and press submit. That's all there is to it. You also get to define some of the prizes that you're applying for and are going to be planning to integrate. And that also helps us understand that if you need any help with integrating any of these things, we can connect you with the right people to make sure that you don't have any issues or technical integration problems. This really kind of helps us get you the help you need to just stay unblocked. You'll be able to follow all of that on the Discord channels, and you'll be assigned, you'll be kind of prompted to kind of just post your check in there as well. And we'll kind of share all those details over the next few days. And as you respond to check-ins and submit a project, the stake you've put forward gets returned. And all this happens, again, asynchronously via a dashboard. So you don't have to look up for any email or specific message. As soon as you log in to your dashboard on Monday, you'll be able to see the next steps. And after those check-ins and after a lot of talks and workshops and 2.5 weeks of hacking, we kind of get to the submissions piece. And what I want to talk about here is just a quick format of how judging works. We really want this thing to be asynchronous. So to submit your project, all you have to do is record a maximum 4-minute video of your demo. This covers who you are as a team, what you've been doing over the past few weeks, what inspired you to work on this project, and a demo of how it works and everything you were able to do. And as you do that, you get to submit that on your dashboard again. And we get to then set up for judging slots that happen the week, the days after judging is due. So the quick reminders here are, do not do this thing last minute, because to get looks like we're having some technical difficulties. So do not do this thing last minute. To get a There we go. Don't do this last minute, because to get a 4-minute working video, keeping all transaction confirmations in mind does take long. So it's important that you kind of get to record everything and plan for how the whole demo works. And you're able to anywhere from cut out inefficient or waiting periods from the video, or really make sure that you have a way to still snapshot what you did in case something breaks as you're presenting it to the judges for the judging live. And all these details, again, are going to be made available on the Info Center and also on your dashboard. And we have example videos that you can look at. We have example submissions that you can see through on what details you need to provide. And you can also watch some of the live previous judging sessions from previous events on this and really see how that whole process goes, if you'd like. And then as part of all of this, I want to make sure that this is still an event, even though it's online, and we have a code of conduct that we want everybody to abide by. And the rules and the code of conduct are over at ethglobal.co/rules. This talks about some of the best practices for how to behave in our online community, and also what it means to participate at the hackathon. The gist of it is that in terms of rules, I've already highlighted them before, which are you have to work on something that's as part of as part of the window. The hackathon is open and officially running, and anything that you build over the course of this event, the IP of that solely belongs to you. So you own the full rights to do whatever you would like for your project. And the gist of the code of conduct is that please be respectful to everybody on the Discord and on the calls, and harassment and abuse is not tolerated in any capacity. If you believe somebody is behaving not like they should, please reach out to anybody on the ETH Global team, and we'll be there to help. And lastly, just as I wrap up the logistical pieces, I want to quickly just take a deep breath and tell everybody to really pace themselves. You have a lot of time to understand what's happening. You have a whole week just to learn and catch up and explore what's possible. We do not want this thing to be exhausting for you. This is not a competition. We really want you to have fun. There's so many people that are participating for the first time that are just getting started in understanding what's out there in the world of Web3. And we really want this thing to be about learning and experimentation. So it is totally okay if at the end of this event, you don't get to finish what you wanted to do, or you only get to 50% instead of 100. We want you to learn, and that's our primary goal. We want to make sure that you can continue to build in the space, and we have the whole setup to ensure that you get the help you need, whether that's during the event or even after the event. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions, as simple or as complex as they may be, on our Discord, because we have so many dedicated people just waiting to help you and help answer all of your questions. So don't be afraid to be in a place where you think you may not have a full project. This is very much about experimentation, and we just want you to learn something more than you did as of today. All right, so that was a lot of logistical information all crammed into the last 20 minutes. So I'll take a quick 5-second pause and we'll walk through any questions that come in from our chat, and I'll get to address that in a few minutes as we move over to the rest of the content. But until that kind of comes in, what I want to do is quickly highlight the schedule for today and what the next 2 to 3 hours look like. So immediately up next is prizes and some of our videos from some of the sponsors that we've asked to introduce themselves. And then we're going to jump just exactly an hour in, we're going to jump into our very first summit talk, and that's going to be an interview with the SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce and Marvin Ammori from Uniswap. Then we have an amazing chat with Demetri Kofinas and Hasu on just the macroeconomics of crypto. Then we have our DeFi security panel, where we'll have Mariana Conti, Sam, Emiliano, and Martin talk about some of the best practices in writing safe smart contracts, especially as you deal with people's money. And then we have some just quick 60-second closing remarks on just wrapping up the day. And then later today, we have our first live team formation session after the event kicks off. And that's pretty much it. So a few more hours from now, we'll be on track. And with that, let's get ready to talk about some of our amazing partners. So I want to quickly thank all the amazing people that have kind of signed on to help over the next month for attendees from our mentor side and everybody in this space. So there's a lot of amazing companies and protocols out there that are going to be present at this event. So I want to first thank all of our presenting sponsors, and that's Uniswap Grants Program, Compound's Grant Program, Circle, 1inch, Aave, and StakeDAO. So they've been an immensely helpful partner to work with over this event. And we also have Badger, the Ethereum Foundation, Superfluid, and Balancer. Next up, we have our pillar partners. I want to thank Protocol Labs, Kyber Network, Vega, Nexus Mutual, Rarible, The Graph, Liquidity, UMA, 88 miles per hour, Enzyme, HackMoney, Peirce, Element Finance, Pillar, Polygon, and Flashbots. All these protocols are here to help you integrate what you can do in the DeFi ecosystem, and there's so many incredible primitives that you'll get to explore soon. On our provider partners, we have Oasis Foundation, Acropolis, Economy, Consensus, Umbrella Network, Gas Station Network, Streamer, Upshot, Starkware, Connext, Covalent, Idle Finance, POTS Finance, Instadap, BitGo, Chainlink, Teller, ENS. And lastly, our supporting partners, Matcha, QuantStamp, Lemniscap, Hermes, CoinSpect, and Saddle. This is an incredible lineup of so many amazing companies. And if you're thinking about anything in the categories I've named above, whether that's lending, options, insurance, protocol, DEXs, aggregators, NFTs, like layer twos, you have a full spectrum of things that you can do, and you can ask any of these companies on what is and isn't possible, or how you can remove some work from your plate and just use these protocols just to get started and focus on the core value prop of your experience for the hackathon project. So those were some of our amazing partners. We also asked a few of them to record a few words talking about who they are, what they're excited about, some of the culture at their team, and why they're excited to be part of this event for the next month. So I want to kind of have them share a few words here, and as we get ready for that, we'll be able to jump into talking about the details for our prizes. So without further ado, let's roll some of our partner videos.
Hello, HackMoney. My name is Jesse Weiss, and I'm a marketing director here at Circle. We're so excited to be participating in this hackathon with all of you. As the company behind the fast-growing stablecoin USDC and a suite of APIs that help businesses around the world build financial apps across payments, treasury, and digital commerce use cases, we truly believe the future of finance is being built on-chain by developers like you. Our goal in participating in this event is to help you get a better understanding of the role both USDC and our APIs can play in the development of DeFi and blockchain-based finance apps. We're here to provide access to the resources and tools you need to implement USDC into your project. On Thursday, our VP of Product, Joao Reginato, will be hosting a workshop to help you learn exactly how you, as a developer, can leverage both USDC and our APIs to build on and off ramps into DeFi. He was the product lead on both USDC and our APIs, and he'll give you a quick overview of the products, as well as a couple of customer stories from companies like FTX, Dapper Labs, and Dharma. We'll be available on Discord for the entirety of the hackathon, so please feel free to reach out and connect with us there. You can also connect with us at circle.com. We're so excited to be here, and we can't wait to see what all of you build.
Hey everyone, my name is Nick Martich, and I work on business development for Compound Labs. For anyone who's not familiar, the Compound protocol is a set of globally accessible, open source interest rate markets, allowing anyone to earn an interest rate on their idle assets and use them as collateral to borrow other assets. Since September of 2018, Compound has processed over $140 billion of supply volume, $40 billion of borrowing volume, and has cemented itself as a core piece of financial infrastructure for the decentralized economy. Compound is a developer-first protocol that opens up a new universe of innovative financial applications. We've seen folks use Compound for a variety of use cases, like savings accounts, prize pools, leveraged tokens, portfolio trackers, and fixed income products, just to name a few. Our team is now working on a new project called Gateway that will expand Compound's interest rate markets beyond just the Ethereum ecosystem. Gateway allows users to upload assets from connected peer blockchains, which are used as collateral to borrow any asset supported by the network. The ultimate vision for Gateway is to prepare for a multi-chain world where assets interact seamlessly across multiple Layer 1 blockchains. The success of both Compound V2 and Gateway will depend on talented developers who build new integrations, upgrade the protocol's codebase, and actively participate in governance. There's also never been a better time to contribute to the Compound ecosystem and get rewarded for doing so. Hackathons, grant programs, and the governance system all present great opportunities to get funding for your work. We're excited you're here and can't wait to see what you'll build next.
This is Stani from the Aave Protocols Genesis team. So we are the team that built the Aave protocol and gave the protocol to the community ownership. And so excited to be here in this hackathon, participating and being able to judge different projects here. And to give some context what Aave is. So Aave is our protocol is a decentralized interest rate market where you can come and deposit different kinds of cryptographic assets and see those assets grow in terms of interest rate in form of balance. And your deposit also acts as a collateral in the protocol, meaning that once you deposit into the protocol, you can actually borrow other assets from the protocol, or you can delegate that borrowing power to someone else. And as a protocol, the market consists of different kinds of assets that you can use, and the protocol is deployed on the main Ethereum network and also testnets, such as the common testnet, and also in the Matic network. So if you're building on Matic or the mainnet or Kovan testnet, this is very interesting proposition for you to test the cross-chain operability, especially if you have some sort of a hack in mind that could empower both of these communities. And anyone who is participating should also mind that we as a team are here to support you and the Aave Grants DAO as well. And there's various prizes that you can actually win during this hackathon. And some of the prizes are, for example, for the best hack, you will get 7,000 USDC. And for the second prize, you get 3,000, and third, 2,000. There's various things you can actually build on top of the protocol itself. And we'll go more into detail in that, or you can ask any questions in the Discord. Happy to be here, and thank you, everyone.
Hey, my name is Kirill, and I'm the lead blockchain engineer in 1inch Network. As you can know, 1inch was built in 2019 on Ethereum New York Hackathon, and the initial protocol of the 1inch network was a DEX aggregator solution that searches deals across multiple liquidity sources and offering users better rates than any individual exchange. This protocol incorporates the Pathfinder algorithm, which finds the best paths among different markets over 50 plus liquidity sources on Ethereum, 20 plus liquidity sources on Binance Smart Chain, and 7 plus liquidity sources on Polygon. In less than 2 years, the 1inch DEX aggregator surpassed 50 billion in overall volume. Another product of 1inch ecosystem is 1inch liquidity protocol. This is the next generation automated market maker that protects users against front-running attacks and offers attractive opportunities to liquidity providers. And our latest release is 1inch limit order protocol. This protocol offers an unmatched level of flexibility, which shows in two major features: dynamic prices and conditional execution. Use our protocols with pleasure. Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm Julian Butolu. I'm one of the contributors of StakeDAO. StakeDAO is a decentralized exchange with a very nice UX and UI, and we from buying, selling assets into some very advanced trading order routing mechanism to investing in some very advanced strategies, Euro, US dollars, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the different ones, into some different networks like Binance, Ethereum, Polygon, and then staking inside native protocols like Solana, Polygon, Cosmos, and all the different ones, and then earning extra rewards on the top of it, to some governance things where you can earn the different proceeds from the DAO, and also some NFT mechanism where we are the only one providing advanced mechanism on top of NFTs for you to boost your APY or have access to some VIP strategies or VIP products that we have been building. You can also build for arbitrage, liquidations, different strategies. So if you're looking to participate inside this hackathon, you can click on the top of the banner in StakeDAO and it will bring you to where we are offering those different prices. So 4,500 US dollars for the best strategies, and also some very exotic ones. So for example, APY Hunter, we've been working on some of them, but we'd like you to join and help us build and ship those different strategies. And also like 2,500 US dollars for toolings. So for example, TypeScript, SDK, helpers on the top of Solidity contracts, Zaps, and some modular strategy framework. We also have a partnership with Superfluid, 1,000 US dollars for building on top of it, and a wheel card and pool price, which is 4,000 US dollars. So if you're building some very cool stuff that we think is very nice to add inside the StakeDAO, we'll be willing to reward you. So if you can join us on Discord, sponsor StakeDAO on the East Global channel and be answering questions. You can also tag or hashtag us into the Twitter. And if you have questions for me directly about the hack, you can contact me, reach out to me on Twitter at bnelush. I think that's it. Happy hacking, guys. See ya.
Hey everybody, Chris Spatafora here from Badger DAO. Just wanted to say we're super excited to be participating with HackMoney this year and looking forward to seeing what everyone builds. To give you an overview of Badger, we're a community-owned project that has really a singular focus, which is build the products and infrastructure necessary to bring Bitcoin to DeFi. Today we have a handful of products that enable users to bring their Bitcoin to Ethereum and other chains, and then when it's there, put it to work. Our foundational product is SEP Vaults, which is a yield aggregation product for tokenized Bitcoin. So we run non-custodial smart contract-based strategies on tokenized Bitcoin across other protocols in DeFi, like SushiSwap and Curve and Uniswap and so forth. We also have a Badger bridge that enables you to bring Bitcoin to Ethereum and put it to work with one click. And then we also have a few synthetic products like interest-bearing Bitcoin and DIG. Interest-bearing Bitcoin is a basket of yield-bearing Bitcoin tokens, and DIG is a synthetic rebasing Bitcoin. So as it relates to the prizes, which we're super excited to announce, we have 12,000 total in prizes, and 10,000 of that 12,000 is dedicated to Bitcoin yield strategies. That means is, for this hackathon, the top 3 yield strategies that are tokenized Bitcoin focused on either mainnet or Polygon will be rewarded that $10,000. You can get started super quick by using our Badger strategy mix and follow the step-by-step tutorial and workshop video to start building on Badger right away. And then we also have a $2,000 open prize, really for anybody that wants to build anything Bitcoin, DAO related, governance oriented. So couldn't be more excited to see what everyone builds and looking forward to the hackathon.
Hello everyone, my name is Francesco. I'm one of the founders of Superfluid, and I'm extremely excited to welcome you to HackMoney this year. We really wanted to sponsor this hackathon because hacking money is exactly what we do. At Superfluid, we have rebuilt tokens to what we call the super token standard. Now, super tokens are like tokens on steroids. We have amazing functionalities like money streaming, rewards distribution, and batch calls built directly into money. And what this means is that you can have native experiences like, for example, recurring automated payments. So let me tell you a bit about money streaming. So money streams are these perpetual instances of transfers, right? So basically you open a stream, and once you've opened it, money will start flowing from your account to the counterparty's account without the need for any intermediate transactions. So as a user, you simply have one transaction to sign on chain, and then hands off, you can walk away. Money will keep flowing forever until you close the stream or until you run out of money. Now, what this means is that we can enable a very good UX for recurring payments. And recurring payments are an incredibly important piece of payment infrastructure, because if you look at Web 2, what we've seen is it's basically made the fortune of a lot of companies. Now, for us, it's very important to monetize Web 3 in a sustainable way. And we believe that money streaming will be the way we do this. So using money streaming, you can do subscription payments, you can do salary payments, but you can also build real-time finance where you use streams. This is something we're very excited about, and you can find out more on our website. Now, I'll tell you a bit about our bounties. So the first and most exciting thing for us is enabling anyone on the internet, even if they don't know that much about crypto, to accept streaming money for subscriptions. So our top price for this hackathon is $2,500 for the best checkout experience. You don't need to know Solidity, just dazzle them with a great UX. Now, we also have free bounties, which are basically building a savings account where you can stream in and out. The savings account can be staked out or Aave, and as a user, you should be able to stream your money into it. The second bounty is a streaming exchange. In this case, imagine you have DAI, you want to stream and buy Ether every second. The third one is for the best use of ERC-777 callbacks, which enable you to stop using token allowances, so improving the UX of DeFi throughout. Now, we also have a prize pool of $3,000, which will be split with everyone using Superfluid. So if your idea doesn't fit in, please have a look at that. Now, there's two ways you can use Superfluid. Either on the front end, where you basically use our JavaScript SDK to interface directly with the contracts. In this case, you don't need to know Solidity, and you can get away with literally one line of JavaScript to open a flow. So this is very, very, very easy for you, and I think it's going to be a great first step into Web3. If you're more advanced, you want to take on the second, third, or fourth bounty, then you will use the Super App Framework, which allows you to create applications which react to streams. Now, what this means is if I open a stream towards your contract, you'll be able to execute logic. And when I close my stream, you'll be able to execute logic again, enabling these really complex financial applications which have never been built before. Now, if you want to play around with it, go to our dashboard. It's very easy to use. You don't need any specialized knowledge. Just go to app.superfluid.finance and send your first money stream. Now, I'm extremely excited to welcome you all to HackMoney. If you do have any questions or if you want to get in contact with us, go to discord.superfluid.finance. You will find the team. You'll be able to ask questions. We'll point you towards your resources. We'll help you find the team if you don't have one. We'll help you find team members if you need them. And in general, it would be great to just have you join the community and create new money with us. Good luck, guys.
Hey guys, this is Fernando from Balancer. Welcome to HackMoney. It's great to have you here. I'm sure many of you know that from hackathons like this come great protocols and projects. I'm sure I'm going to see some big things out of this, hopefully using Balancer. So why are we so excited about Balancer? Balancer V1 was all about creating liquidity pools that were like index funds. So you could create a pool that has 20% WAF, 30% DAI, and 50% MKR. And Balancer V1 made sure that that distribution of value kept this way. Now, we talked to other teams like Ocean, PowerPool, and Idle Finance, and so many others. And we realized that this was a bit too strict, too limited. So we created Balancer V2, with some very interesting features that allow for it to be a lot more extensible and for other projects to build on top of it much more smoothly. Now, two main features. The first one is that you can have customizable AMM logic. So it doesn't have to be the index fund style pools. It can be like curves pools where you have stable coins that have better trades for price one. And this is already live on Coven and going to mainnet soon. But you have other teams creating like Element of Finance AMMs that change over time because it's better for their zero coupon tokens, or stablecoin projects that have taxes for people who are selling the stablecoin below the peg, and those taxes go to the project's vault, for example. So that's very interesting. The second nice feature is the asset managers. Why would we use the idle tokens in balancer pools and create a lending platform ourselves if there is amazing platforms like Aave and others around? So the idea was that asset managers allow you to do whatever you want with your token, with your pool's tokens. And it could be lending on Aave or Yearn or doing other stuff, but it could also be used for voting, which is what PowerPool is doing. So there's so many nice things that you can build in Balance 52. Make sure you ask questions and come to our Discord or to our Discord channel, and we'll be very happy to assist you on whatever we can. Really excited to see you guys building on Balancer. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. This is Sandeep from Polygon Network. I'm really excited that Polygon is yet again a part of ETH Global Hackathon, HackMoney, and we have been always developer focused, and being a part of ETH Global Hackathons has been one of the best things. And most, kind of rewarding experiences in terms of learning, in terms of getting to know the community. So really excited for this. About Polygon. So Polygon, as many of you guys would know, that Polygon is basically an Ethereum scaling aggregator. It supports. It is expected to support multiple, scaling mechanisms eventually. And we also recently launched Polygon SDK, which helps you spawn up your own chains. And then we are going to launch very soon more into the roll-up domains, more solution in the roll-up domains. And especially for HackMoney, like recently you guys must have seen exponential growth of DeFi on Polygon. We have, I think, more than $8 billion worth of TVL logged in various applications. All the big applications in the DeFi space like Aave, Curve, and then many more, Sushi, they are all available on Polygon. We are offering 8K in bounties, and you can find more details on our Notion page. All the best to you all, and hope you guys are able to come up with really fascinating applications, which has been the legacy of all the ETH Global hackathons. Thank you so much, and feel free to reach out to any of us over Discord or anywhere else, and we would love to help you out. All the best.
Amazing. So hope you got to enjoy some of those videos from our sponsors. They talked about everything that their protocols can do and their platforms are designed for. So I'm sure, as I'm seeing some on the chat, there's a lot of ideas flowing, and there's so many new things that you can experiment with that we haven't really even seen kind of the possibilities for. So those were just some of our messages from the sponsors early on. And what we're going to do now is just talk about some of our prizes. So you've been waiting for this for quite some time. We have a list of every company that's giving out a prize and what they're doing. And we made a quick compilation of them talking about their prizes as well. So we'll see Aave, Compound, 1inch, Uniswap, Circle, Staked Out, Badger, Superfluid, Balancer, Protocol Labs, Vega, Rarible, Kyber, Nexus Mutual, Enzyme, Harmony, 88 miles per hour, Liquidity, UMA, Pillar, Element, and Polygon. Just going to come on now and talk about all the prizes that they're giving out and how you can qualify.
Hey everybody, this is Ken on behalf of the Uniswap Grants Program, and we're so honored to be sponsoring another fantastic ETH Global event. This time for HackMoney, we've come prepared with 6 jam-packed bounties worth up to $12,000 in Uni, 4 of which are Uniswap specific. So 2 for the most innovative, and 2 for the most impactful hacks built on top of Uniswap. And we have a special surprise for you. In collaboration with Flashbots, we're offering $4,000 for 2 bounties, the first of which is for the best hack building one of the challenges put forward in our hacker guide, and the second is for the most creative usage of both Flashbots and Uniswap. So let your imagination run wild. Check out our hacker guide. If you have any questions, find us on Discord or hit us up on Twitter. Best of luck, everybody.
All right, on to the fun stuff. Let's talk about prizes. Circle will be donating $12,000 in USDC to the prize pool, and we'll be splitting it between 3 of the projects that we're judging. The first prize is the best overall solution, and this is something that we think is going to fundamentally change the world. That prize will be $7,000 in USDC. The second prize is the best out-of-the-box solution. This is a project that honestly blew our mind. How the hell did you think of that? That prize will be $3,000 in USDC. And finally, last but not least, the most practical solution will be the third prize. This was simply a great idea that was well executed, and the prize there will be $2,000 in USDC. Good luck to everyone participating, and we can't wait to see all of the projects.
Hi, I'm Larry, and I'm the lead for the Compound Grants Program. If you haven't heard of us, the Compound Grants Program is an independent, community-led grants program established earlier this year. So far, we funded dozens of grants and plan to fund dozens more over the coming months. We're really excited about HackMoney, and as part of that, we have 4 prizes that we're featuring for this hackathon. The first prize is for $2,500, and it's for someone who builds the most original use case for supplying assets to Compound. The second prize, also $2,500, is for the most original borrowing use case on Compound. The third prize is for someone to build an open source interface on top of Compound. And there again, the prize is $2,500. And then for everyone else who's building really cool things on Compound, we have a prize pool of $2,500. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We'll be in the HackMoney Discord channel all day long. Happy hacking.
So top three projects on the Aave protocol side are able to win from the Aave grant style, 3 different kinds of prizes. So the first main prize of the winner of the Aave protocol usage will get $7,000 worth of USDC, and the second one will get $3,000 worth of USDC, and third $2,000 worth of USDC. There's different examples with Imran is going from the Aave grant style going to elaborate more, and yeah.
Thank you, Sani. So there are 3 areas of focus for Aave in order for Aave to grow to the next billion users. The first is looking for integrations, startups that are looking to integrate with Aave as a protocol and building on top of Aave. The second is really understanding growth and understanding what are some of the tools that users need. So things like credit delegation dashboard, or thinking about bringing real world assets into Aave or Aave Pro. And then finally, it's bringing more analytics and tooling to Aave and its users. So things like being able to build out Aave Transaction Explorer, something that we're looking deeply into. And these are the 3 areas of focus for us. Please ping any of the Aave team members and we can give you more details on the types of startups we'd like to support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, One Inch Network prepared 5 tasks for HackMoney hackathon with awards of 12,000 USD in 1 inch token. The first challenge is a margin trading on the 1 inch limit order protocol. The second challenge is a limit order adapter for the 1 inch liquidity protocol. You need to build an adapter for creation limit orders over the 1 inch liquidity protocol or over any decentralized exchange based on their available liquidity. The third task is a automated market making strategy for stable coins using the 1 inch limit order protocol. And the fourth task is a mesh network for 1 inch limit order protocol. You need to build a peer-to-peer network that will validate, receive limit orders and distribute them among the network's peers. And the last track is an open track. You can suggest your own solution. Keep in mind that 1 inch limit order protocol has conditional execution and arbitrary price discovery. We wish you success with your tasks.
everybody, Chris here from Badger DAO. Just wanted to share our prizes for HackMoney. We have 12,000 in prizes total. 10,000 of those are dedicated to what we call Bitcoin yield strategies. And that's building different types of yield farming strategies specifically for tokenized Bitcoin on mainnet or on Polygon. And we've given a quick start guide on how to start building yield strategies using the Badger DAO infrastructure and protocol. And then we also have an open prize for 2,000, which is essentially build anything on top of Badger. You know, that could be tied to BTC, that could be tied to multi-chain governance, that could be tied to some of our products like interest-bearing Bitcoin or DIG, but nonetheless, going to be more excited to see what you build.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to HackMoney. Come join us and build the future of online payments using Superfluid. So we are extremely excited about providing everyone online, even if they don't know much about crypto, with the opportunity to accept streaming money as a way for subscriptions. For this reason, our top prize for this hackathon is $2,500 for anyone who can build a dazzling checkout. Now, here you don't need to know Solidity. All you need to do is create extremely good UX so that even merchants who don't know crypto can use it. Our second prize is to put that money to work. So as the merchants receive it, they should be able to invest that money into a savings account that gives them a yield, like Aave or StakeDAO. The third bounty is for a streaming exchange. So imagine you want to stream DAI and buy Ether every second. The fourth bounty is for the best use of ERC-777 callbacks, which are another capability of super tokens, which allows you to avoid token approvals. But if your idea doesn't fit into these, don't worry. We also have a prize pool of $3,000, which will be equally distributed to everybody who uses Superfluid in their hack. So come join us at hack.superfluid.finance. You will find all the resources you need, great people to help you out, new team members, and potentially an idea if you don't have one. Good luck and have fun.
Hey guys, this is Fernando from Balancer. I'm pleased to announce our prizes for this hackathon. The first place, the winner will get $8,000, and the second place will get $4,000, so a total of $12,000 of prizes. There are some very interesting ideas we are suggesting for people to build on top. Of course, you can come up with your own creative idea, and that's something we want to be surprised by you guys. Some ideas are, for example, to use an asset manager to reinvest liquidity from layer 1 Ethereum onto sidechains like Polygon. Another one is to create an arbitrage bot that uses price discrepancies within Balancer V2 using internal balances and makes money out of it, like arbitraging this. So yeah, go ahead and hope to see you hacking and creating surprising things for us. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Muskan. I lead developer relations at Polygon. So we'll be giving out a total of 8,000 worth of prizes to hackers who will build on top of Polygon. First is like best implementation of ideas provided in bounties. So we have shared a couple of ideas in bounties. If you implement one of those, you'll be eligible for this prize. And next is like best DeFi tooling on Polygon. So we have shared like a couple of ideas for best like DeFi tooling on Polygon. And next is we have collaborated with UMA for 2 bounties. That is like best use of UMA's optimistic oracle on Polygon, and best use of UMA KPI option contracts on Polygon. And last is OpenTrack. So if you implement anything apart from these ideas shared, so you will be eligible for OpenTrack bounty, and that is like worth 2,000 in USDT. So yeah, I think that's all about a bounty.
Hello, my name is Demetri Kofinas, and I'm the IPFS ecosystem lead at Protocol Labs. Welcome to HackMoney. Protocol Labs is building the next generation of the internet using technologies like IPFS and Filecoin. We are offering a couple of different prizes for HackMoney. A first prize of $4,000 in Filecoin, 2 runner-up prizes of $2,000 in Filecoin each, and a prize pool of $10,000 worth of Filecoin divided up between all of the projects building with IPFS, Filecoin, or libp2p. So that could be you. We know it can be challenging to work with some of these new technologies, so we are here to help you in our sponsored channel. Make every day developing with IPFS and Filecoin feel like a sunny day in the grass. Please join our sponsor Protocol-Labs channel on Discord. We're looking forward to hanging out with you, building your applications. See you at HackMoney.
Hey, Christina from Vega here at the Blockchain and Protocol for Decentralized Derivatives. We're super excited to be here and sponsor 3 bounties. First of all about fees for 2K. We're looking for a useful and creative tool tracking the fees within the Vega network. It's important here that it displays this to multiple network actors, such as liquidity providers, token holders, validators, etc. Second, we're looking at a 2K prize for a cool crypto sheet-like solution, connecting Fairground APIs, that's the Vega testnet, to your sheet of choice and provide something useful and cool. Lastly, we have a 4K prize pool split between everyone that builds something on Vega. We're in Discord and have a bunch of resources. Excited to see what you build.
What's up, everyone? It's Eric here from the Rarible team, and we're super pumped to be sponsoring HackMoney. There's 2 reasons why you should build on our protocol. First is that NFTs are going mainstream, and second is that the intersex of NFTs and DeFi is super cool. Our protocol includes an indexer, an exchange where you can buy, sell, bid on NFTs. There's fee splitting built in, and you can mint regular or lazy NFTs. There's $8,000 in prizes. If you have any questions, reach out on sponsor Rarible Protocol in the Discord. My name's Eric, and docs.rarible.com is where you can find more info. Look forward to it. See you guys.
Hi everyone, this is Bo from Kyber team. Kyber DMM, Dynamic Market Maker, is a next generation AMM protocol designed to be highly capital efficient and flexible to use for liquidity providers. Kyber team will award a total of 8,000 USD worth of KNC tokens to project who built with Kyber DMM. You can build anything using Kyber DMM, but we have some ideas to help you boost your imagination. Check out HackMoney website to learn more about it. And our team will be in HackMoney Discord, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy hacking!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Colton, the head of growth at Liquidity AG, the team behind the Liquidity protocol. Liquidity is a decentralized borrowing protocol that allows you to draw 0% interest loans against ETH as collateral. Those loans are paid out in LUSD, which is a USD pegged stablecoin. For this event, our first place prize will be $2,500 in LQTY tokens. Our second and third place prize will be $1,500 in LQTY tokens. And we'll also do a pool of $1,500 in LQTY tokens spread across all valid submissions under the Liquidity category. If you need any resources, liquidity.org is the best place to start. We also have docs.liquidity.org for more technical resources, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys build throughout the event. Thanks.
Hey everyone, this is McFly from 88MPH. During the 3 weeks, we will support and encourage you to build cool products with 88MPH V3 smart contracts and Subgraph. We will award more than $7,000 of prizes to projects that make it simple and easy for non-technical users to use 88MPH. Other ideas include integration of 88MPH into existing or upcoming product and tools. For example, easy mass fixed interest rate lending, multi-sig governance treasury management, improved solvency, and new DeFi primitive that could range from interest-bearing derivative or structured product to in-game or off-bearing assets. Looking forward for your participation. Good luck, everyone.
Hey, everyone. We're excited to work with HackMoney and ETH Global. So Harmony is scaling cross-chain applications. We're an open and fast blockchain. We've launched our mainnet 2 years ago with 2-second transaction finality and lower fees, and we're building bridges to Binance and Ethereum. We are awarding prizes with top prize for 3,000, second and third prize, and then also there's a pool prize for applications launching on mainnet. And here are our resources: docs.harmony.one, our developer community, and our One Love campaign with Gitcoin for $300,000 in bounties. We're looking forward to working with all of you soon. Thanks.
Hello HackMoney hackers, Charlie here from the UMA team. Really excited to get to announce our upcoming prizes for this year's hackathon. We have 3 prizes up for grabs. The first one will be the best use case of our new long short token product, which we'll be announcing this week. This prize will be judged by the UMA team. The second prize for $2,000 will be the most creative use case of our optimistic oracle, which will be judged by a combination of the UMA team and the UMA community. And our last prize for $3,000 will be the KPI option that wins the hearts and minds of our community. For more information on any of these products, reach out to us on the ETH Global Discord or on our very own Discord. Good luck.
Hey everyone, and welcome to HackMoney 2021. I'm super excited to tell you a little bit about Enzyme and the prizes we're going to be offering during the hackathon. For those of you who don't know about Enzyme, Enzyme is a completely decentralized asset management infrastructure built on Ethereum. Enzyme empowers individuals and communities to build, scale, and monetize vault strategies on-chain that can interact with the entirety of DeFi. We're going to be offering 3 prizes during this hackathon, which will be paid out in MLN. And we've provided some inspiration and guidelines for you, which might be helpful as your team is gathered. Our team is always happy to support, and we're excited to meet you in our Discord channel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Will Villanueva, and I'm the CEO of Element Finance. Building your project in the Element ecosystem presents a really interesting opportunity. That's because we're launching in mainnet on June 30th during the duration of the hackathon. This means that whatever you're going to build is going to be one of the first projects, products, or integrations to be showcased in the Element ecosystem. In general, Element Finance brings liquidity to the high fixed yield income market and offers leveraging and yield exposure opportunities without liquidation risks. We have 8,000 USDC in prizes, 4,000 goes to the best product built using the Element SDK, the other 4,000 to whatever you want to build, and we've included inspirations and ideas for you here as well. We're really looking forward to collaborating with you, the entire team. We're available on the HackMoney and Element Discord. Happy hacking.
I am Michael, CEO of Pillar, a community-run smart wallet. We brought to you Ethersport SDK, a framework that allows dApp developers to build seamless user experience across multiple EVM-compatible chains. First prize is $3,000 split between USDC and Pillar tokens. Second prize is $2,000 split between USDC and Pillar tokens. Third prize is $1,000 split between USDC and Pillar tokens. We've also contributed $1,000 of Pillar tokens into a pool where teams utilizing our technology can take share of. We've included links to our SDK, example codes, website, playground, and report by consensus diligence. Looking forward to you build over the coming event. Thank you.
All right, I know that was a lot to take in, but I have good news that those were the last sponsor intro videos that we had. The bad news is, another good news is that I have a few more projects that I want to talk about in terms of their prizes. So I want to just quickly go over a few of the remaining prizes that we did not get to see in the past few minutes. And then we are going to be able to kick us off with our first summit talk. So first I want to talk about the graph. The graph will be giving 1,000 DAI to the best subgraph in their Graph Explorer, and they're also going to be giving 2,000 in DAI to the best use of existing subgraphs for your hackathon projects. Then we have Paraswap. Paraswap will be giving $6,000 in total to really integrate Paraswap's DeFi middleware into your projects. So the best uses of those submissions will get 3, 2, and 1,000 respectively. Then we have the Flashbots MEV Fellowship. So Flashbots will be doing a DeFi protocol design challenge where you get to win $3,000 for designing the best DeFi protocol that leverages MEV. Then they also are going to be giving $2,000 for a user experience challenge that integrates MEV into your hack. And there are a searcher, there's $1,500 available for searcher and educational pieces of this, where you get to use the Flashbot's open source bot, or help visualize or do something on the education piece of telling everybody about what MEV is and how you can best integrate and use Flashbots. Then we have BitGo. BitGo will be giving $4,000 in a pool prize, which means that anybody who uses the BitGo.js or WBTC into their projects, they will get an equal split of the $4,000 pool money. Then we have Chainlink, and Chainlink will be also doing $5,000 in pool prizes for the best use of the Chainlink oracles in their protocol in some way. And I'll share a little bit more about how all the pool prizes work at the end. Then we have Teller. Teller will be giving $4,000 in pool prizes for the best use of Teller mainnet or a fellowship Chainlink, Oracle integration. Then we have InstaDApp. InstaDApp is also giving $4,000 in pool prizes for the best use of the InstaDApp platform to use the SDKs or the APIs to integrate onto the InstaDApp protocol. Then you have Streamer. Streamer will be giving $4,000 in a pool prize and delivered in the data tokens, and you must use the Streamer infrastructure to build your project, so the best integration qualifies. Then we have Upshot. Upshot will be also giving $4,000 in pool prizes for the best projects that make great use of the NFT subgraph or aggregate the NFT data for the appraisal piece of using and leveraging Upshot. Then we have Starkware. If you are planning on using Starknet or Starkware's any of their products or SDKs and APIs, you are eligible to win $4,000 as a pool prize to be divided equally among all participants. Then we have Connext. Connext will be also offering a $4,000 pool prize for the best use of Connext SDK or the Connext widget for L2 liquidity. Then we have Covalent. Covalent is also offering $4,000 in USDT prize pool for anybody who uses the Covalent APIs for their projects. Then we have Gas Station Network. And Gas Station Network will be awarding $1,600 in pool prizes for the best use of the gas station network, where anybody who's using the V2 Paymaster integration or using any sort of UX improvement to improve privacy or the user experience for paying for transfers with gas abstraction will be qualified. Then we have the Oasis Foundation, and they'll be offering $4,000 for the best use of their Parcel SDK or the Oasis Paratime SDK. Then we have Acropolis, and Acropolis will be awarding $4,000 in a prize pool for all of the projects who use the Yearn Finance stack for any strategy development or any implementation that either leverages Acropolis or Yearn Finance. Then we have Biconomy. Biconomy will award $3,500 in a pool prize, where the prize will be evenly split with anybody who uses the Hyphen API or any Ethereum Polygon integrations using Biconomy's SDK. Then we have Consensus, and Consensus will be giving $2,000 for a pool prize for all participants using MetaMask and leveraging MetaMask in their integrations, and then a $2,000 a pool prize for the best use of utilizing Infura. Then we have Idle Finance, and Idle Finance will be awarding $4,000 in the form of a pool prize for those of you who use the Idle Finance SDK. Then we have Pods Finance, and Pods will also be giving away $4,000 in pool prizes for the best use of Pods protocol for the options pool for a project that, or for all projects that use it. And then we have ENS, and ENS will be giving $150 USD in ETH to 5 projects that make the most interesting use of the ENS protocol in their hacks. So I know that was a lot to take in. There are over $300,000 in prizes from various sponsors and from various integrations that you can qualify for. And if you didn't get all of them or you missed out some details, don't worry. All these are available on defi.ethglobal.co/prizes. You can see all the details along with the documentation and some workshop videos on how to use them, and some sample code for all of our partners. So if you have any questions on the prizes or how everything works, you can check all of that out on this URL. A quick note about how pooling works is that instead of having a particular first, second, third qualifier for or a winner for any of these integrations, anybody who uses the SDK integration in their project and qualifies with an acceptable use of that integration will get an equal split for the total prize money. So for example, if 10 projects use a protocol and are qualifying for the pool prize of 4,000, then each project will get a tenth of that, and we'll split that into individuals. So if there are 10 individuals in total, then each of them will get 400. So hopefully that clarifies some of this verbally. All those are written down in a lot more detail onto this prize page. So be sure to check that out over the course of the next few weeks and let us know if you have any questions. So all that said, we are at the end of the logistics of everything that you need to know for the hackathon. I want to wish everybody happy hacking as you embark on 2.5 weeks of super awesome and hard work on just seeing what's possible with DeFi, and especially on the protocols and the integration side. So with that, I want to thank everybody who stayed for all of our logistics piece as a hacker. And for those of you who are joining us for the summit pieces, we are ready to start that now. So the first thing I want to do is just for everybody who's just joining us now, I want to take a quick break and, oh, sorry, there you go. I want to just take a quick break, just get everybody a couple minutes to relax. So we'll just put on a 2-minute break and hope you enjoy the radio in the meantime, and we'll resume everything in about 2 minutes, and we'll kick us off with our very first talk of the day. All right, so hope you had a quick 2-minute break. We're just getting ready to start with our summits. So for those of you who are joining us right now, I want to quickly introduce everybody to HackMoney. We have nearly 1,000 attendees attending the hackathon with developers, designers, artists, and economists from all over the world participating over the next 3 weeks to build interesting things and experiment with what's possible with DeFi. We also have over 500 summit attendees for just this summit, and we're doing two more summits over the course of the next 3 weeks on various topics in the world of DeFi and Ethereum. And the participants here for the hackathon are coming in from 71 different countries and spanning 18 different time zones. So we have a lot of creativity in this room, and I can't wait to see how and what everybody builds over the next few weeks. So I want to give a quick overview of what the next few hours are going to look like. We have a few amazing talks up and coming. So immediately after I finish, we have our talk. We have an interview with the SEC Commissioner, Hester Peirce, and Chief Legal Counsel of Uniswap, Marvin Ammori. They'll be talking about just all the interesting things that are happening in the landscape of regulations and how that overlaps and intersects with DeFi. Then we have a fireside chat with Demetri Kofinas and Hasu, who will be covering just the macro side of the implications of what's happening in crypto and how that affects things at global scale. We'll be taking a quick break immediately after that. And then we have a DeFi security panel. We'll be talking about some best practices on just how to write safe contracts and really all the things to keep in mind as you think about either launching your protocols or having others play with anything on Ethereum. Then we have a quick closing remarks just to sum up the day. And for those of you who are planning on attending the hackathon, if you're still looking for a team, we'll be doing a workshop at 6 p.m. Eastern that'll help you find potential teammates if you're still looking for some. So with that, I want to quickly introduce our first and my most exciting talk for the day. I want to welcome the SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce and Marvin Ammori. They'll be talking about all things DeFi and regulation. And if you have any questions from the audience, please type them in the chat and we'll be able to relay those questions back to Marvin, who will be moderating and interviewing. I won't spoil all the content here. There's so many things we want to talk about, so I'll just let them dig in directly. So Marvin and Commissioner Peirce, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kartik. Commissioner Peirce, you might want to unmute. So we're going to be asking you a lot of questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Great. Well, welcome. We're so excited to have Crypto Mom herself here. And so very excited to have you here. Now, as you might have heard, it's about 1,000 developers at this conference. And I'm wondering, how is this audience different from the audience that an SEC commissioner usually speaks in front of?
Well, thanks, Marvin, for having me here. And it's a delight to get a chance to talk to you and to all the developers out there. Typically at the SEC, we talk to a wide range of people, but they're typically lawyers, not developers, just candidly. But my door is always open, so I love talking to all kinds of people. So this is a wonderful chance for me to get a chance to speak with you. I have to give you my disclaimer, which is that the views that I represent are my own views, not necessarily those of the SEC or my fellow commissioners.
Got it. Well, hopefully you'll persuade them to come over to your views soon enough, Commissioner Peirce.
Trying.
So tell us, how have you been thinking about DeFi? What's the awareness of DeFi at the SEC? What are your thoughts about its potential benefits? Just sort of generally, how are you guys thinking about it?
Well, again, I think this is an area where we are learning a lot. The growth in DeFi has been pretty remarkable in a short amount of time. Regulators tend to take a long time working on things and thinking about things, so it's a bit difficult to keep abreast of everything that's going on in the DeFi world. That said, we are trying to do that. We have a dedicated office at the Commission, not dedicated just to DeFi, but dedicated to financial technology. And there are people in that office who are quite knowledgeable and who are talking to people in the DeFi world frequently. And we're working with our fellow regulators across the world to try to get our arms around DeFi. Personally, I've found it really fun to try to learn about it. I am a lawyer by training, so it's a bit of a stretch for me, but I do enjoy hearing people talking about the projects that they're working on and trying to learn a little bit about it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to try to build a financial system. And I think it's not just related to finance. I mean, I think finance is probably step one, but I think there'll be other things happening in this space that allow people to engage with one another without intermediaries that they've traditionally had to rely on, and to build things with people who are, spread far and wide across the world. And so it's a way to bring capital and people together, I think, that is pretty unprecedented in our history. And so I'm excited to see what comes from it. That said, it certainly does bring its own regulatory challenges.
So often when developers are working on projects, they're looking for real world problems to solve, right? So I'm wondering, from where you sit at the SEC, are there any problems you see in the financial ecosystem, the traditional, what we call TradFi, that you think maybe DeFi could solve because it could remove intermediaries? Do you see any things that, you might not have the solution, but maybe the developers should be thinking about solving some problems that you see?
Well, I think from my perspective, when I look at the traditional financial system, there are a number of problems that I think consistently pop up. One of them that we've seen is systemic kind of risks. When something goes wrong at one financial institution or several large financial institutions, it can have pretty widespread consequences. And so that's something that I think is inherently something DeFi could be addressing because of the decentralized nature. Another issue that we see is people taking advantage of other people, telling them they're going to do one thing and doing another thing. Again, something that I think DeFi can address, because it is something where it should be transparent, where you can see everything that's happening. You understand exactly how a transaction will occur and what the terms of the transaction are. So that's something that I think is promising. So those are a couple areas where I think we see problems all the time. But I also think that something that DeFi can do, because it does try to bring together people, many people into a system together, you can take advantage of decentralized knowledge in a way that it's much more difficult for the traditional financial system to do that. So if you think of something like credit ratings, where you're trying to understand the risk around something, it's helpful to have a lot of different points of view coming into play there. And so I think that's an area where certainly DeFi can play a role. Now, from a regulatory standpoint, I also think having those eyes and ears of lots of people being applied to a situation can be helpful. We're trying, we're limited in our resources, and so trying to monitor what's going on everywhere is difficult. But I think DeFi can probably be part of that solution. Now, that maybe will look more like self-regulation than regulation, but to the extent we can offload some of the work that we do and offload it to people who can watch over the system themselves, that could end up being a good thing. Another area where DeFi is often thought about, I think, as part of the answer, we worry about the ability of the financial system to serve people all across society. And I think that's something that DeFi can do well. But it's not only individuals. I think we need to think about how DeFi can be valuable for getting capital to entrepreneurs. That's something that I think about a lot in my role as a commissioner. So that's another area where you might apply your development expertise.
Got it. Okay. I almost heard that. Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear an echo. Do you guys hear an echo?
I think it's coming from the commission. Just mute.
Let me mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So some of the things I heard there, Commissioner, were DeFi can expand financial inclusion, could also help with getting financing to entrepreneurs, could help with monitoring the markets with many eyes on the transparent blockchains, such as the Ethereum blockchain, obviously, right? There's so many people monitoring transactions on that. It could also help reduce systemic risk. And one of the main causes of systemic risk in the system are these intermediaries. One thing I find interesting is your point about self-regulation, right? Do you have any thoughts? Within the traditional financial world, there's lots of different self-regulatory bodies, and I'm wondering, have you given any thought to how self-regulation could happen in the DeFi ecosystem at all?
Yeah, I mean, most of the self-regulatory bodies in the traditional financial system are actually quasi-governmental regulatory organizations, because we actually do play a pretty big role in regulating them, and thus in regulating the ultimate end that they're trying to regulate. So I think in DeFi, if we were trying to take advantage of self-regulation, I would want to see it be more a pure form of self-regulation, where you really are working as a community to try to monitor what's going on with different projects. Again, a lot of this it's code-based, right? So you can look at the code and know and understand what's going on, and I think that's a very valuable form of regulation. So that's where I see the strongest case for it. I mean, I think that one of the worries I have about what's going on in DeFi, I think there's a lot of positive, but one of the concerns I have is that we portray everything as being very decentralized, but there often is a very centralized element of a lot of what's going on. There are ways for an administrator, whether that's one person or a group of people together, to make changes, and those things need to be very transparent. And so I think it's really important for the community to really take that seriously, to insist that projects are very upfront about how changes can be made and who can make them and what the safeguards are around that. I think there are a lot of, because there's so much money now tied up in so many of these projects, there is going to be a lot of interest from a lot of people, whether it's someone associated with the project or someone from outside who's a bad actor, or maybe a regulator is going to be looking at that pool. And so I think people really need to be building systems that are able to handle large amounts of money in a way that's safe and in a way that they can prove to be safe to their users. So a little honesty, I think, can be really key in this area, and I think that's where self-regulation comes in.
Got it. While you were speaking, that reminded me, and I wanted to clarify for developers who don't know, the SEC tends to not be a merit regulator, tends not to regulate the merits underlying an investment opportunity, and tends to focus more on disclosure, making sure that the market has a lot of disclosure. But that just made me realize some people who are listening might not know very much about the SEC. We just kind of dove right in talking about DeFi. Maybe you can just sort of explain where the SEC kind of fits within the broader federal government when it comes to investments in general and securities versus commodities, et cetera. It might be useful for a paragraph summary or 2 paragraphs.
Sure, I should have done that at the beginning. I don't expect developers to really be familiar with the SEC. It's one of many federal financial regulators, and we regulate broker dealers, investment advisors, the stock markets, options markets, and we also regulate public company disclosures and mutual funds, exchange traded funds. And you're correct to say that we're not a merit regulator, though sometimes we give way to our worst selves and we start to edge into merit regulation. But really what our main goal is to get disclosures out there so that investors can make decisions about what they do want to invest in, and to make sure that when financial professionals and financial intermediaries are dealing with investors, that they're doing so in an honest manner. So that's kind of our mission, facilitate capital formation, protect investors, and protect market integrity. That's kind of the core of what we do.
Great. And also the jurisdiction is limited largely to things that are securities, right? So the question of whether or not a particular cryptocurrency is a security or not is a big threshold question that determines whether or not a token will be regulated a certain way. And I know that you had proposed a safe harbor to try to get some clarity because it's a new area of technology, it's new market structures, and a lot of the existing laws aren't totally crystal clear. And so you proposed something that would be crystal clear. Do you want to sort of explain the safe harbor in a few sentences and kind of where it is in the process?
So I can't promise that the safe harbor would be crystal clear either, but it's designed to give a little bit more definition around when something needs to be treated as a securities offering and how you could do a token distribution event consistent with the securities laws. Right now, we have a very broad definition of security, which is intentional because you want to make sure that if someone is raising capital to build a company, that is encompassed within our jurisdiction. So we have this kind of open-ended definition that captures those kinds of things, but that has been quite difficult for a lot of projects that are trying to do a token release, that are trying to get the tokens out there so that people can use them in the network and that the network can take hold with network effects. And so what I proposed is you have a 3-year period where you make disclosures to the people who are buying your tokens. You update those disclosures periodically. You're telling people what the token economics is. You're telling them what your plan for development is. And when you tell them that, you better be telling them the truth because you're subject to the anti-fraud rules under the securities laws. But at the end of 3 years, if you can show that your token is a utility token essentially, or if you can show that your network is decentralized, then you can move out of the securities framework and you can go about your merry way without worrying about the securities laws. This is something that, from talking to people in this space, they think it would be useful because we've tended to provide most of our guidance in this area through enforcement actions, which can be a very unpleasant way to learn the law. And I think it would behoove everyone if we set out clearer guidelines up front so that people who are really trying to do the right thing had an avenue to do that.
Got it. And so your reference to enforcement action reminded me, I believe it was last week or the week before, the SEC put out a list of priorities for the year. I think they were rulemaking priorities. And if I'm not wrong, nothing about cryptocurrency was on that list. How did you interpret that, or how should people think about that potentially?
Well, yeah, I was not too happy about the omission of crypto on the list. I think not only would I like to see my safe harbor on that list, I should clarify, I'm one of 5 commissioners, and so I'm not the chairman, so I don't set the agenda. But I put the safe harbor out there in the hopes that the chairman would put it on the agenda. So that disappoints me, and I think there are other areas related to crypto around custody where we could be providing more clarity for people. Now, our chair is new and does know this space quite well. So I expect that we'll see something regarding crypto happening. He's been speaking out already. And I think what he'd like to see is the cash markets, the crypto cash markets. So exchanges, he'd like to see those regulated, whether that's by the SEC or some other regulator. But that would require Congress to come in and give that jurisdiction to someone. Right now, the CFTC has some limited jurisdiction over those markets, but it's something that he's spoken out a number of times now already on.
Got it. We have a question from the audience, which I think is a great question. The question is there a department or liaison at the SEC to help new companies navigate this burgeoning field? Right, there are lots of potential legal landmines. And is there anything that an entrepreneur can do to sort of have a channel with the SEC?
Well, so I mentioned our office that deals with financial technology, and that's the place where I would recommend you start. So it's called the FinHub, and you can find that on our website, and you can contact them and they will meet with you. Probably now it would be virtually, And they do a lot of meetings with developers. So that's what I would recommend you do. You're always welcome to come talk to me. I enjoy talking to people. But the difficulty, and I have to warn people about this. I think I always recommend people go and talk to FinHub, but you can end up in very protracted discussions that can be frustratingly slow. And ultimately, you really do need to get your own lawyer. They'll flag for you some of the things that you need to think about, but this is not an easy area of the law. And certainly the intersection between crypto and securities laws is a difficult one. And there are a lot of potential landmines on the way. So you really do have to be careful. I try to push us to move faster on things, but I've been at the commission for 3 years now, and it's been, sort of a slow going to get stuff to move faster.
Yeah, so this is not legal advice. I'm a lawyer, but not anyone's lawyer. Step one, try not to do anything shady. Try to do something that's, good for the world, right? Already you're in a better place, right? If you're actually trying to do the right thing, even if you don't know what the law is. Two, if you get any traction, get your own lawyer, right? And then think about interfacing with FinHub, because those lawyers all know FinHub. There are lots of great law firms that work in the space. And, I'm at Ammori on Twitter, and I can, I'll recommend one right now, right? I think the folks at Goodwin do a good job. The folks at, there's a set of law firms, Latham, that do quite a good job. But feel free to DM me, and I'll send you to one of the lawyers I think is good after talking to many lawyers in the space. But I think what Commissioner said makes perfect sense. You need your own lawyer. So the other question we have here is, this is actually a great question. When someone launches one of these DeFi protocols, Commissioner, it is not just in the US, it is global, right? I was an internet lawyer for many years. I remember when people said code is law the first time in 1998, when Larry Lassig's book came out about it, right? And there's a whole set of thoughts about how the internet would route around domestic laws and there would be no domestic law anymore. And they were wrong, obviously. Laws is resilient, and countries were able to impose their own laws in different ways when it came to the internet. Now, when these protocols are launched, globally on day one, how should people think about the law in general, right? Should they prioritize the U.S.? Should they prioritize their local law? How would you think about that if you have any thoughts?
Well, I think you have to think about where you're based. Obviously, you need to think about the law there. And, the reach of US law we have a long arm. And so I do think it's worth people thinking about US law unless they make very explicit attempts to exclude US persons from being involved in the project. It pains me to say that because I know there are instances where people do that in order to avoid our law. But, I think really, if you're being realistic, your project is probably going to have some kind of reach into the United States. And so because we do interpret our jurisdiction broadly, we may have something to say about it. So, work with your local regulator, but you've got to think about EU law, US law, and laws in other places too. That's why, this is really a fraught area. It's a very difficult area to do things.
Do you have any thoughts on how early people should start thinking about that? I feel as though you can probably wait until you have some traction before you have to think about it. But I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Well, I always think it's good to start thinking about these things as early as you can. But, realistically, you're right. Getting legal advice is expensive. And so, you're going to have to figure out when in the process you want to do that. But, I think starting out with what Marvin said, don't do shady things. That's a good start. You can get a lot of free types of guidance. You have to be careful with it, of course, but there are a lot of things that you can look at and read to try to figure out what you need to do. But the problem is, if you're building something, you really do sort of have to understand the framework in which you're building, and the regulatory framework is a big piece of that. So I'm always, yeah, I can see your point about you wait till you get some traction, but if you get traction, you might end up having to adjust what you're doing also. So I say earlier the better.
Yeah. I think you articulated what I meant to say much better than I did there. Is there a concern about some of the top crypto projects leaving and going abroad, or our industry falling behind, other countries? I mean, one narrative you sometimes hear in crypto, right, is that, Binance is the biggest exchange in the world, kind of by far, right? And they didn't quite have to play by the same rules as Coinbase. Coinbase is a great company, but smaller. Is there a concern that if we don't provide clarity or kind of permit folks to compete on a level playing field, that the largest companies in the space might be abroad? Is that an important consideration that regulators have in terms of American industry versus talent moving elsewhere?
I mean, it's certainly a concern I have. I want the United States to be the place that everyone wants to come to build things and to innovate and to raise capital and to draw from our capital markets. So I want this to be a place that people want to be and want to do things and build things. But I have heard from projects that they've decided not to do it because there's not enough clarity here. I think one of the disadvantages of being in the United States as a regulator is that we do move slowly, and that's in a way good, because that's why we have very well established capital markets. They're very effective and good capital markets and safe capital markets, and so that's a good thing. And part of that is because we have a regulatory system that is stable and doesn't change rapidly. So those are all good things, but at the same time, you need to be nimble enough so that you can adjust, so that you can be a place where someone can come in and say, an innovator can come in and say, hey, I have a new idea. I want to try something new. How can I do this in a way that's consistent with the law? And we come back with a willingness to work with people to that end. And this has been something that we're not great at, whether it's crypto or innovation in traditional finance. We've been, quite slow. And I think that's part of the reason why you see less competition in the financial services industry than you would otherwise see if you really did have a more nimble regulatory structure. So I certainly do worry about that.
Got it. Well, it looks like we have 2 minutes left. I guess the last question I'll ask, without being redundant, is there any way that these developers can help you in the commission kind of get more educated about DeFi, keep up with all this information? What's sort of the most useful and helpful on your end?
Well, I think one thing is just come talk to me and tell me about what you're building and what you're seeing in the space. That's always helpful. If there are things that you're seeing coming out of the commission that are particularly problematic for you in terms of what you're trying to achieve, let me know that as well. And if you see bad actors, point those out to the SEC as well. We have a whistleblower. You can come in as a whistleblower. That's on our website. Because I think if we do go after the bad actors, the good actors are more likely to dominate the space, and then maybe regulators. Maybe it'll be easier for me to convince my colleagues that there's something really wonderful being built here. And then just keep up your good development efforts. I don't want you to spend all your time thinking about regulation. I want you to build things that are going to change the world for the better.
Well, Crypto Mom, I asked you if this was like your usual audience you speak to. I mean, these are your people. So thanks for speaking to this audience and joining us today. Kartik, is this all we have?
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Commissioner Peirce, Marvin, thank you so much for that amazing talk. And I think it was a really positive and optimistic note, especially as 1,000 developers get into trying new and crazy things. So hopefully we get a more safer sandbox way for them to experiment this to the broader world. But in the meantime, we'll play with what's possible on testnets for the course of this event. So thanks again, and really appreciate you taking the time. Amazing. So hope everybody enjoyed that chat. There's a lot of interesting perspectives that were shared, and we are ready to move on to our next talk. So I want to quickly just introduce our next speakers. We have Demetri Kofinas, who is the host of the Hidden Forces podcast, and he'll be speaking with Hasu, who's a prominent Ethereum researcher, as they discuss, and they'll be discussing just ethics, restorative versus progressive ideologies in crypto, and honestly, just a frank conversation about what it'll take to truly make money great again. So without further ado, please welcome Demetri and Hasu. I'll let them take it from here.
Hey, guys.
Hey, hello, guys.
See, the difference between me and Hasu is you can tell when I turn my camera on.
That's right. Yeah, I will.
There's no change in the avatar.
I will keep it at this. So can we start? I think so, right?
Yeah, Hasu, just as we're all set.
Okay, great. Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm a research collaborator at Paradigm. I'm also the editor of Deribit Research, and I host the Uncommon Core podcast. And Demetri, I'm extremely excited to talk to you today. I'm a big fan of your podcast.
Likewise, Hasu.
Thank you. In your episodes, you are not afraid to tackle some of the most complex and important topics in the world. And I feel like you approach them from a first principles point of view and with a very open mind. And that I think is very rare today. So why don't we start by you telling us a bit about what you do at Hidden Forces and what your mission is.
So I'm always bad at these questions, but essentially the podcast is as you know, it's a long form conversation type podcast. I try and find experts or really brilliant, interesting people who are doing work in a particular area, who can speak to some timely subject or non-timely, depending on whether it's interesting or not. And then I do a lot of research before speaking with them. And what comes out of these really well-researched, super interesting, detailed conversations that really run the gamut. Whether it's Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's strength coach from 1989 until the end of his career, or central bank people like the chief economist of the BIS, or folks like this. And the program is called Hidden Forces because the idea is that in order to understand the world, in order to understand the epiphenomena that we encounter in our daily lives, you're best suited to get as deep as possible down the vector of whatever it is that's driving that system or that behavior. And that's what Hidden Forces is. It's a deeply epistemic approach, and it takes an empirical and epistemic approach and a critical thinking approach to understanding the world, which I think is desperately needed today.
Yeah, spot on. And today we want to talk a bit about sort of also some of the hidden forces of the crypto space, timely enough, sort of the ethics and values, and also some of the excesses that we see in markets today. And I want to start by talking about a phenomenon that I think everyone is aware of at some level, but maybe not under the same name. Some call it postmodernism, others, the casinofication of markets. And in a recent podcast with Grant Williams, you called it financial nihilism. Mm-hmm. So Demetri, what is financial nihilism, and why should we care about it?
So I define financial nihilism or market nihilism as an investment philosophy that treats the objects of speculation as though they were intrinsically worthless. And it not only conflates price with value, but it synonymizes the two. And I think this explains partly why so-called narrative investing, to the extent that this is even like a term that anyone uses, has become so popular. Because I think that people have always made money by investing in things that before everyone else thinks to invest in them, right? But in my experience, we've never really had a philosophy that's so nihilistic and cynical, which says that it's all bullshit value is effectively what you are able to bootstrapping a narrative, getting people to believe in something, even if they believe, in many instances, things like scam, like a scam coin or something, or some of these other things. The idea is that everyone's saying, well, let's all just close our eyes, tap our heels 3 times, and the thing will go up. That to me is very new, and it's very nihilistic. And I think that derives from that same type of thing, that same type of phenomenon.
Right. And I think it's important sort of to delineate between when we look at Bitcoin, for example, or Ethereum, those are also things that are bootstrapped from nothing. But when they are big and they have a lot of network effect, then they will be valuable because of that, right?
Right. Well, I think that's a great point, right? Because Bitcoin, in a sense, sort of pioneered this, but it pioneered it, and it's at a point now where it has millions and millions of adopters, people that are invested in its success. And I think that's a phenomenon that we see across the board everywhere in life. People try to imitate. They try to fast follow. And so everyone wants to be the next Bitcoin because everyone wants to be rich. So that drives so much of whether it is in crypto or meme stocks or anywhere, there's this desire to be the next Bitcoin, the next Uber, the next Google, but now it's just everything's been tokenized. So the capacity to generate the returns that a Google can generate or an Uber can generate are actually possible because the dividend has gone away, the cash flow is gone. All you need is asset price appreciation. So there's actually a way to get there if you can get enough people to believe in the Ponzi and to buy in early enough so that you can exit at a sufficient multiple. That's the game.
Right. And it seems sort of where for me the nihilism comes in contrast to something like Bitcoin, would be that a lot of people will like straight up tell you that they don't believe in it for the long term. They just want to get out, they want to get in and get out before, others do. And that's how they plan on making money with it, right?
Yeah. And that raises the question of whether utility is important, first and foremost, and then also whether or not having a sort of a long-term vision is important, or is it simply important? Is price really all that matters?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you raised a very interesting point when you compared this sort of to the rise of growth companies and growth investing. Like when we look back 40 years or 50 years, like the way that someone like Warren Buffett, made their start was, with a sort of cigar butt strategy, right? Sort of look at, companies and only look at their tangible value and completely discard sort of any potential of future growth. And now we seem to have the opposite almost, right? Only looking at future growth.
It's a very momentum-driven investing environment. And that's not entirely surprising when you consider that the ultimate driver of that momentum has been, and that sort of equilibrium of steady increases in price over time have been monetary policy makers. They've created an environment, sort of sauce for the goose. If everyone sort of invests in the giant tidal wave that the Fed has created through the massive amounts of liquidity that it's generated, and in that way, particularly Bitcoin, but crypto as a category is really a deep, pure expression of the chaos that has created.
So you would say financial nihilism is primarily a result of, bad policy and central bank failure?
I think it's partly a result of central bank policy. Specifically, what I've talked about is the moment of clarity that normally comes every so often through the contraction of a business cycle. The absence of that moment of clarity and the sort of promise of perpetual mean reversion that has developed both through forward guidance of monetary officials, but subsequently every market participant simply believing that things will just go up. That is very nihilistic because it provides no room for the discretionary investor whose job it is to actually tie price back to value, right? To tie perception to reality if we are operating with an idea that there is some ontological base reality. and incidentally, I think this is also why theories of simulation theories have gotten so popular in the culture, because there is this feeling that reality is less and less relevant, or even absent entirely, or empirically non obtainable. I think that also speaks to something else, which is that we just can't appreciate how much our experiential universe has changed over the last, in particular, I'd say 10 years. I think that's where the big change happened, because that's when 10 or a few more years, when ubiquitous connectivity through mobile and social media and networked applications became a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there is a real sense that the world is less tangible. We spend more time, and as a result of that, we spend more time in the digital world. And because we spend more time in the digital world, we end up running into a problem that has always existed, but that we never really were aware of. Because when we live in the world, when I meet you, Hasu, I know if I say that there's Hasu and someone else will say that that's not him, but it's so obviously you because you're in the world. I can see that that's you.
Mm-hmm.
The onus of proof is on the person who's making the statement that it's not you. But in the digital world, it's very difficult to distinguish truth from fiction, fact from falsehood.
Yeah.
And so we run up into another problem that crypto, that one of the central problems that crypto is meant to address, which has to do with trust. And how do we trust a world that we can't sort of verify through our bare sensorium as we know it to be true, putting aside legitimate arguments of whether the world as it is, base reality as we perceive it, is actually base reality, and to what degree it has any relationship to reality. Those are fair arguments. But regardless, we were evolved to live in the world. And I think this transition to a digital world, the challenges of making that transition work are deeply underappreciated because of how quickly we've sort of been sucked into it.
You made a very interesting point there regarding our inability, to verify things and, tell truth from fiction. Would you say that this motivates maybe to a degree the entire, strive for having a decentralized financial system and, the Web3 narrative, let's build new social media platforms, new internet giants, but this time decentralized and where everybody can, verify the state and so on?
You cut out for a second. Did you say, does it validate the need for, quote, decentralized applications?
Yeah, pretty much. And a decentralized financial system. Because this is such a high value, right? Both in Bitcoin and Ethereum, the ability for anyone to be an actual node in the system and, validate that the rules of the system are being followed. So would you say this is an attempt to reclaim that power?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think the general answer to that is yes, I do. That's sort of the short and succinct answer. I do think so. I think it's, again, you and I know we've talked about this oftentimes. There's, there is the philosophy, there is the virtue signaling within the community. There's a lot of virtue signaling along certain values of sort of enlightenment or American enlightenment and things like this, and truth, etc. And we all, the community falls very far in certain sectors, falls far short of that. But I absolutely do think that this is the correct goal to strive for. Yes.
Mm-hmm. In an age where people only seem to care about the price of things, it feels more important than ever to take a moment and reflect on the values that, the crypto community wants to have. What values and ethical codes do you think crypto should represent? And maybe where does it currently fall short of that?
Well, I think that the virtues that the values that the community sort of developed early on or had, sort of, again, enlightenment type values, a culture of openness. These are important values. I think the community falls, I think in the Bitcoin community, a lot of the spokespeople for the community fall vastly short of that, that standard. There's a lot of self-policing that happens. There's a lot of sort of ideological cultish worshiping. And that I think does not serve the community well. I think and I'm not impartial to either Bitcoin or Ethereum, to be clear. But what I like about the Ethereum community is that there is more of a focus on building. And by the way, I think these are, again, culture is something that changes over time. You know, this isn't something that has to be permanent. I just think it's a phenomenon at present. I think, you know, to that point, the Bitcoin culture, as an example, is more restorative, and the Ethereum culture is more, so to speak, progressive. And what I find more appealing in the present time, because of all the problems that the world faces and because of the incredible opportunities that this technology can support, I find that progressive ethos far more attractive. And I also think, incidentally, that it is far more aligned with the current zeitgeist. And I think we've seen this in the conversations around the energy problem, or you could disagree whether there's an energy problem or not, but let's just put mining and the enormous policy focus and focus through ESG and other areas of the economy on green energy, Green New Deal, stuff like this. So that's sort of how I see that, if that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Regarding sort of the progressive versus restorative. So you said one fits the current zeitgeist better than the other. Where do you stand on the question if, you know, the same person can sometimes favor restorative ideals and at other times progressive, or versus is it like always two different camps, and, you know, sometimes one is more powerful versus the other?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think that you can favor both, because, again, to bring it to Bitcoin, because it's a tangible example, Bitcoin's value is in its restorative qualities. So you invest in Bitcoin, you want to hold Bitcoin because you don't want too much change. So the same people that can, you know, be working in Ethereum, many of those people, or people that own ETH or BTC, they own both interchangeably, and people can support both. And these are actually the entire, I mean, one of the things that people outside the crypto community may not understand as much is that it benefits everyone when Bitcoin goes up in price, or at least it certainly benefits Ethereum. The industry moves in tandem, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but it is what it is for now. So I think that you can support both if you can be in fact, to my point, one of these strong progressive values today in the zeitgeist is environmental conservationism. Well, what is that other than not restorative?
Demetri, can you restore restorative for our audience real quick?
Can I what?
Can you define what restorative means?
By restorative, I mean kind of make America great again. Make money great again, so to speak, putting out all the pejoratives associated with it. And, you know, there are a lot of things about society that were great, that maybe that the current culture is very quick to throw out, you know, the baby with the bathwater. There are a lot of really, really great things that we shouldn't forget. So maybe it's a bit of a jumbled answer, but that's why I would describe it restorative. I probably should have thought of a better answer than that, but it's kind of like a way of talking about being conservative.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think we're like conservative is about, you know, not favoring keeping things the way they are, unless we are really sure that they must be changed, right? And restorative to me means returning to a better time. Also, like you said, with Make America Great Again, right? We restore something that has once been. And I think the idea that the Bitcoin community is striving for in a lot of ways is returning to, like, I mean, sometimes they talk about sort of the gold standard, but also just about the, you know, maybe a glorified or romanticized version, you know, of America that may not have ever existed, right? The wealth gap is often, you know, mentioned when, you know, their grandparents were able to work for a few years out of college and buy their first house, right? And then get 2 or 3 kids, you know, and have 2 cars and whatnot, right? And they look at themselves and they are burdened with student loan debt. Ever being able to afford their own home seems completely out of reach for them. What do you tell them? Like, is it realistic that this time can even be restored, or do we need to find completely new solutions to these problems?
So these are totally fair observations, and the wealth gap, and the wealth gap is partly driven by the type of financial repression that we've described.
Yeah.
The same phenomenon that favors asset prices over dividends and income flows and fixed income flows. I think this is a really tough question. It's a fair question. It's a tough question. No one really has the answer to this. I find it difficult to see how this trend can continue indefinitely, because in practical terms, what it simply means is that America moves from a more market-oriented, commercial, capitalist, so to speak, free market economy towards one that is increasingly feudalistic, where a smaller and smaller percentage of people in society control the vast majority of all the wealth. And whether that's represented in treasury securities or stocks or anything else, that doesn't work. It creates political volatility in place of the interest rate volatility or financial market volatility that you would normally see, right? So the central banks create this sort of steady upward movement in prices, and in return, you get increasingly political instability. That can't go on forever, which is why I think the central banks, whether they acknowledge it, whether they even understand it entirely consciously or subconsciously, are trying to devalue fiat currencies, because that is a way of achieving a soft default. And the soft default is, I think people view it as the only way that we can redistribute wealth somehow. I don't even know if that works. It's actually very concerning. We all have trouble sleeping at night as a result of this, all of us who deal with this issue. No one really knows how it's going to work out. I mean, you can say it's going to work out really badly, and you'll have some kind of political revolution, or you will have a form of international, because we live in a world of nation states, international conflict, because rather than implode, countries will seek to explode onto the international stage. That's what we've seen in the past. It stands to reason that is what will happen again. Things can always change. Maybe also we are reluctant to believe this because it seems so out of scope. But I think every year it becomes easier to believe with some of the things that we've been seeing and how much the global order has changed in the last 10 years. It's sort of unrecognizable, especially in the last 20, since the first year of the first administration of the Bush administration.
Yeah, indeed. Also, you drew a very beautiful picture there of, volatility can't be contained, right? It can only be moved around. And just when you thought you had it contained, then it breaks out somewhere else, right? And
yeah, 100%. So that the thing is that, and this is something I talked about on the Grant Williams podcast, which is that in a free market economy, people have economic value and they have political value. If the market becomes increasingly socialized and corrupt, people still have political value. They may not have economic value, especially to a further point with the move towards automation. People increasingly maybe feel like their lives are meaningless. They don't have opportunities to engage in the power process and actually exert their will onto the world and feel like their lives matter. But their lives do matter at the ballot box. So that's a dangerous cocktail when and this is why the founders are one of the reasons why the founders are very concerned about, and some pushed for, people like Jefferson pushed for suffrage to be directly attached to property ownership, which was they were very concerned about people being landless. They saw what happened in France.
Yeah.
They were concerned about landless revolts and inner city riots of people who didn't care. And we see that in cities when we see rioting and stores being broken and looted. Why is that happening? Because people don't feel invested in their local communities. So, I think, I don't know if I strove off there.
No.
That's I was seeking to make.
I really like this tangent. I mean, this is I think an underappreciated insight, right? Like, who is the man who becomes, a criminal? It's not the guy who has property and has, a wife and a family and whatnot, right? It's those that feel sort of left behind by society in a sense, right?
Yeah, completely. Exactly. I think that's a powerful framing though, right? Feeling left behind. Even if you have plenty of money, in other words, enough money to be able to live comfortably and exert and not have other people determine your life. I know lots of people who are in that position who are a lot older, who are angry because they feel like the world is leaving them behind. And that, I think, is just a normal intergenerational transition. It just so happens to be that the world is way more different today than it was 10 years ago versus 1980 from 1970. And so people who came of age in an earlier time find the world even less relatable 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later. And that's another problem. How do we integrate these different conscious experiences into one coherent, workable society? Some people take the view that it's not relevant. Our current nation state political structure isn't relevant in this new world. I don't buy that argument. I haven't been convinced of it because I think that ultimately we do live in the physical world. That's not changing anytime soon. I know there are a lot of people that want to upload their consciousness to the cloud, which is wholly unscientific endeavor. But that's neither here nor there. And so security matters. And if there is an outgrowth of political terrorism in the United States as a result of some of the forces that we're describing here, that's going to impact all of us, regardless of whether we work remotely or not.
Yeah. They say history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And what I appreciate about your show so much is that you often bring, you have this grand view, about not just our current times, but also knowing a lot of parallels, right? Zooming out and seeing that, nothing ever happens for the first time. Do you think there are any parallels in history to be found, to what we are seeing right now?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think one parallel is the first industrial revolution in the 19th century. We saw America move from a primarily agrarian and somewhat merchant economy to a largely industrial one. And I think that coincided, not coincidentally, with the Civil War, because while the Civil War was fought over the question of slavery, the means by which the war could be fought, and most certainly won by the North, resulted from the industrialization of the North relative to the South and the power that accumulated politically to the North. And that was a sort of a changing of the guard for the elite in society. So that part, I think, is relevant, as is the industrialization, right? Because you've got a new class of elites that exist today who formed their wealth as a result of primarily a completely new revolution in technology. Mm-hmm. I think similarly, the second industrial revolution, really kind of the late 19th, early 20th century, is another example. What was interesting about that was, one, just the enormous growth in wealth, and much of which accumulated in the hands of a small group of people, of elites, and then subsequently the transfer of that wealth to their children. And that resulted in a very different type of culture in America, because while the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, John D., Andrew, these folks, or Cornelius Vanderbilt, who actually came into the fold even earlier than those guys, these folks still worked their way up from the ground. Once the wealth transferred to their children, you had this new institutionalized class of elites who increasingly didn't see themselves as Americans. In the case of the United States, they saw them as internationalists. And so their loyalty was more to this to their identity as international elites. I think we're seeing that today as well. And I think the danger at that time was expressed in the form of, these cults like eugenics, the popularity of eugenics. I think there's some similarities there in the in the sort of transhumanist movement and other such ideas that really kind of I don't mean to conflate transhumanists with eugenicists. And I also think it's important to point out that not every eugenicist was a Nazi, right? So this was a larger philosophy, but it had to do with a sense of superiority. And similarly, there was a huge interest in fascism at the time, because fascism was seemed to be such a perfect ideology for business. And so I think there's something similar that we see today with people that are attracted to the Chinese authoritarian model, people that saw let's say how quickly the Chinese built factories, built hospitals during the COVID pandemic, and therefore there's a strain of the culture that seeks expediency over what I think is stability long term. And this brings us back also to the point about automation, which is that automation makes people obsolete. And while it is a political liability in the fact that obsolete voters are very dangerous, you do kind of get to what people like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and people like Bill Joy, co-founder of Sun Microsystems, wrote about in the 90s. And that's where we bring us back to eugenicism and things like this. Do we get a power grab at some point by people who have enormous power, who are in positions to manipulate our minds and our conceptions of reality, not just through intermediation, digital interfaces, et cetera, but the algorithms that tell us what we want, not just give us what we want, but inform increasingly what we desire in the world. I think that's a real danger, the sort of dystopian future that is a lot closer than I think most of us realize.
I think we have painted a pretty dire picture
it is
of the world as it is today. I would like to explore a bit how, as a young person today, as I assume most of our audience is going to be, how you can navigate this world and how you can make your own path, and not become nihilist yourself, but be strong, principled, and and learn to stick to those, maybe.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I guess I don't know why it strikes me as tough immediately. Maybe the transition from doom and gloom to, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah,
I'm not actually. And when I spoke about the point about social media and these companies really having a pipeline into our brain and being able to manipulate our wants and desires, I'm also inspired by the work of people like Shoshana Zuboff and others that I've had on my show, who have really done a lot of work to inform people about this. And I think there's been an awakening in the zeitgeist around regulation of these companies. Can you rephrase that question again? Sorry, Hasu.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would tell like a young person who wants to live in this world?
Well, I looked at people. It's funny that you're old when you no longer think of yourself as a young person. But I think that I actually look at people who are in their early 20s or late teens for inspiration on this. I feel like it's hard for me to imagine how to make it in this world. I think it's important to make allies, and to make allies with people who have lived for some period of time before you and maybe are in positions of power. I guess I'm sorry I don't have a better answer.
No, it's all fine. I mean, maybe we can take it from here. Like to me, some answers would come to mind based on what you said earlier. For example, if we realize that maybe the family model, like where you have a property, you have a family at 25, you have kids, like it's almost like you work the same job like your entire life. How we can try to recreate some of the same benefits, but in a completely digitized and international world.
Yeah.
And what it struck me what you said about you need allies. I think it's very important in this day and age to invest in relationships, right? Because it can feel like, due to the constant connectivity, it can feel like you're connected to many people all the time, but the relationships can be very superficial and ultimately not fulfilling, when sometimes it might be better to disconnect and invest strongly into fewer but deeper relationships.
I totally agree. And actually that does raise something, which is, I think there is that, we've talked about the nihilism and the cynicism. I don't think these are, I don't think people should be engaging in this type of thinking. I think, and I also think that one of the problems that we have today is that there's not, these social media platforms, which are effectively the public squares of the age, are adversarial environments. They are not open town halls for discussion. And that's a big problem. And that wasn't always true. It wasn't always true on social media, and it just wasn't always true, period. And we need that. And I think ultimately that comes, a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that stems from a lack of self-policing of oneself, not of others, because I think we do a lot of that. There's a lot of throwing bricks through glass houses. And I think we what we need to do is to, and there are people that do work in this area. In fact, my guest who I just interviewed and whose episode comes out on Monday, Andy Norman, wrote a book called Mental Immunity, where much of it is about how do we find a way to reason together, to be able to establish and hold ground rules for conversation so that every environment, every conversation doesn't devolve into a zero-sum game. Conversation should be a positive-sum game so that we all get something out of it. Just the same way that training ahead of a competition, ahead of a fight, you don't train to kill your sparring partner. You train in order to make both of you better, so that you can then meet a challenge in the real world and be that much better for it. So I think maybe developing a less cynical attitude towards conversation, and moving away from argument and more towards constructive conversation, and not assuming the worst in other people. So if I were to have any advice, I would say we kind of need to change this speaks to something we haven't talked about, which is narcissism. People are so narcissistic. They're so self-involved, and they don't even realize how self-involved they are because they're so self-involved. But people who aren't that self-involved can see that in their Twitter feeds, can see that in their interviews. And we should, and there are, and a great example of someone like this is Grant Williams. I mentioned him before I was on his podcast, and I thanked him at the end. And I told him that for me, Grant is really a sort of idol that I look at and I look towards for inspiration and guidance on how to behave in the world, because it's very easy in the world that we live in to focus very much on oneself and what I can get, whether it's money or whether it's a claim, and not understanding that we are part of a whole, and our actions, especially if we're in the public world, have an impact, and they impact other people, and people look towards that. Younger people will look towards that for inspiration. So I think that's very important for sure.
Yeah, we keep circling back to the social media companies, right? But they are designed intricately in a way to bring out these negative traits in you, right?
Yeah.
I saw a really good meme almost like a few months ago where someone mapped the 7 large tech companies to the 7 deadly sins. And I think, Instagram was vain and Facebook was narcissism, and it was something around these lines, right? And I feel like it's really true how they bring that out in you.
Yeah, well, they're meant to amplify engagement, and there are aspects of the human animal that favor sensationalism, favor controversy, favor conflict over peace, and getting along. So I think a lot of those things get exploited, and that's where I think we do need regulation. There was a strong push for it, interestingly enough, under the Trump administration. I hear less of it now.
Regulation of what?
Regulation of social media companies. Social media companies are not normal companies. They are utilities. They should be treated as such. And I say they are utilities. They're not treated as utilities. They are they are performing a public service. They're very much like the news division of a corporation, but even more important because they are where we communicate.
Yeah.
They're where we share ideas. They're where we come to consensus about ideas as a culture. And the idea that those should be controlled by a commercial entity whose business model is based on advertising is so obviously a bad idea. It's one of the worst ideas ever. The only reason it hasn't been reformed is because the commercial interests in control of it have employed massive amounts of money in the form of lobbyists in Washington to ensure that nothing will get in their way. So I think this is one of the big battles of the next few years, the next however many years. I don't know. I can't say the next 10 years because waiting 10 years, even waiting 5 years feels like crazy to me. So, this is a huge issue. We can't have a functioning liberal democracy without a public square that at the very least leans towards objectivity. And we are far from that right now.
What are the kinds of regulations that you would like to see for social media companies?
There are people, I'm blanking on the name now, Jessica something I think is her name, but there are, and someone who writes about this and is in touch with a lot of these folks is, I'm blanking on, I had him on my show, Matt, I'm forgetting his name now. He writes the blog Big. So I can't tell you exactly what regulations. I think, for example, the spirit of net neutrality, that needs to carry over to the fact that the censoring is not just happening at the information layer. It's actually now happening on the software layer. It's not on the hardware. It's not just in the hardware. It's not just cable companies censoring content and packets of information. This is now happening on the platform level with companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever.
Yeah.
So that type of that attempt to kind of level the playing field has to happen there as well. And I think, and this is without having studied it very carefully, and I would love to hear what other people have to say about it, is it seems to me that this entire business model of trafficking people's attention and clicks for ad dollars is toxic. It shouldn't exist, and I would favor in light of there not being anything better. I would be in favor of banning it entirely, because I think it's one of those things that's clearly horrible for everyone except for very few people who can profit from it, and even they will protect their kids. I was just in Kauai. This is a great example. I was in Hawaii, and there's an island in Hawaii called Kauai where they filmed Jurassic Park, Tropic Thunder. In fact, I passed by Ben Stiller's house, but more importantly, who was the director of Tropic Thunder. I wish I didn't pass in his house because I don't know Ben Stiller, but if Ben Stiller's an ETH head,
and if he's listening right now,
he's listening, Ben,
please reach out.
love you. But I also passed by from a great distance, Mark Zuckerberg's house. Mark Zuckerberg has purchased through, all sorts of covert processes, a huge area of land in Kauai. And he employs a huge security detail to ensure that no one can get close to it. And why do I bring this up? Mark Zuckerberg has told us that privacy is a sort of bygone thing. It's not important. We're over it. Move past that. But he wants privacy. He wants privacy for himself. He buys all the houses around his house on the West Coast. Why? Because he wants privacy. So I think you said something that made me bring that up. I wasn't just ripping on Mark Zuckerberg. I think it had to do with that was my point.
The 7 cents.
And my point is, the only reason that it's not important to Mark Zuckerberg is because he has the money to be able to create that privacy and to be able to protect his own children.
Yeah.
So it's the same. Steve Jobs didn't let his kids use certain products, some of his own products. I doubt Mark Zuckerberg lets his kids open up a Facebook account, unless it's like a private intranet account or something.
Yeah, I read a book last year, and now I'm blanking on the name, but the gist of the book was it laid out how the super rich can buy all kinds of benefits, like privacy, like immunity from law, and there are like not that difficult ways you can buy everything with money, and everything has a price. And this
is the hallmark of a corrupt society and a banana republic.
Maybe, yeah, but it wasn't local in nature, this phenomenon, but it was deeply global. It had to do with regulatory arbitrage, because there was always a place where you can get exactly what you want if you're willing to, expand your reach. And this actually deeply reaffirmed my belief in the value proposition of crypto, because if you can buy everything with money, then maybe the right way, like maybe those holes can't be closed. Maybe that's the wrong approach. Maybe the approach is to make it, just as cheap as possible and as easy to get, just democratize access to these things like financial privacy.
Right. So the question is, how would you do that? Would you do that through government regulation?
I don't know.
Because then you have the problem of the sort of who will guard the guardians, which is that you have to overcome these enormous blocks to regulatory change, to sort of progressive regulatory change, which are the companies and the individuals who have captured the government. And this is why it's difficult. You kind of run into the problem of like, how do we get from here to there? And is it going to be violent? And is it going to be difficult? And it's certainly going to be difficult,
I mean, I see crypto as a bottom-up experiment almost, in competing with things that can only be done via top-down policy otherwise, because for the private market, it's not possible to bring up, a solution that grants financial privacy from the state. It's never going to be tolerated. But if it's a cryptocurrency, maybe, right?
If it's a cryptocurrency, what?
Then maybe it has a chance to.
What has a chance?
It has a chance to grow, into existence where it can be used by a lot of people and be accessible.
That a cryptocurrency or a platform? You're talking about? Sorry, I must have missed that. You're talking about a decentralized social media platform?
Oh no, just financial privacy.
Oh,
some kind of financial decentralized applications, like store of value, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not great privacy, but it's some privacy, right? It's not the kind of privacy that Mark Zuckerberg can afford for himself, but
I think there are certain areas where you can create. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I think there are certain areas where you can create privacy in the commercial realm by using a different incentive and wealth redistribution model, essentially having an open source, decentralized platform with token issuance. I think there are places that you can do that. Maybe I need to graduate from the realm of skepticism in general in crypto because of so many of the things that do make people skeptical. Again, long-term believer, short-term, there's a lot of noise to sift through, but sure, I think in principle, yes.
Let's talk about that actually, like your skeptical position on crypto. You say you are a long-term believer. What does it take for you to become a short to medium-term believer as well?
Good question. For example, for DeFi, one of the things that's been disappointing, a little disappointing, but more simply uninspiring, I would say, is that DeFi, as I see it, is primarily used as a tool for financial regulatory arbitrage and gambling. And so it's no different, in my view, than, if anything, it's just more, it offers more opportunities to gamble than traditional financial markets. At least in terms of, for the size of the market, the kind of opportunities to gamble. I would like to see, whether it's in DeFi or anywhere else, I would like to see a major a launch of a really widely used application. So if it were a DeFi, a lending protocol that was that let's say in the developed world really made huge changes in economic opportunity for people. But also, again, because this is financial services, I think there are huge risks in DeFi as the network grows, because not just because it's unregulated, but because these systems don't just have complexity in code. They also have the complexity of the financial layer. And you basically have these two forces working together, and they can create a lot of volatility and a lot of instability. And, the traditional financial system prior to central banking was obviously much more volatile. And you had instances of bank runs and firms going under because of the nature of how banking works and leverage works. But you didn't have those forces combined with the complexity of actually writing software and all the sort of unintended consequences that come with that. So I think there's still a lot to work through. I think it's interesting, but you and I have talked about this before. I actually think I was optimistic about how the tokenization of software would drive capital into a space and allow the market to effectively crowdsource interesting projects. And that I found this to be a superior model to government grants and things like this, which I found to be, full of corruption. But when I've actually studied, if you actually look at how some of the foundational open source protocols were developed in the United States, they were developed through close collaboration between the government, academia, and ultimately passing that off to the commercial sector.
And the military.
And the military, exactly right. So the government, I throw the military in together. That model worked very well. And I think one of the reasons why it worked so well is because, when you're a creative and you're an innovator, you need a space to be free, to think without constraints, and to create without any particular objective. Vannevar Bush created an outfit like this during World War II. And a lot of things like microwave radar that was put onto bombers in the Atlantic that actually took out all the submarines, the Nazi submarines that allowed American vessels to cross the Atlantic and to refuel. This is before the United States entered the war, and to rearm and provide supplies to the British and to the Allies. That was possible because of the ability to separate the military, which needed stringent, very much like a commercial operation, and the academic sector, academia, think tanks, etc. So I think there's a real benefit there that's lost in the current model because there's so much focus on the token and the price. How do we get the price up? And I think that's a real cost. Some people might quibble or argue, well, it's okay, it's a cost, but it's not, the benefits are greater. I don't know if the benefits are greater, to be honest. I think a lot of money has been wasted in this space and scammed, and et cetera, because of this.
I think I have a practical question for you. Some DeFi coins choose to launch a token immediately, have a trade on secondary markets, because they see this as part of the feedback loop, right? It creates an aligned community of early investors. Sometimes, like some of them even become contributors. They use it to incentivize, liquidity provision and adoption. But others sort of keep the token on the back burner. They don't even launch it. They eventually they will, right? Because this for the way that I like to think about it is this is sort of the equivalent of going public, like the going public moment of a new company. And some like to take years to launch a token, right? DYDX is sort of a derivatives exchange that does this, has been live for like 3 or 4 years now and still doesn't have a token. But sort of where do you stand on this? And maybe also in the light of private, like if you look at regular companies, they take longer and longer to go public, where public markets investors can buy them for the first time. And this, at least it seems to contribute to the rising wealth gap, right? Because a lot of wealth is now created and captured exclusively in the private markets, compared to, like, for example, when Microsoft went public and all of that wealth was subsequently created in the public markets. Yeah, where do you stand on this with regards to DeFi?
That's a really great question. I think one, there's an incentive for people to launch a token earlier and earlier, because not just to raise capital, but this, you mentioned it, build a community. And I think it's one of those things where I understand why people do it, even if they aren't necessarily interested in raising more capital. But I would have to say that again, the benefits of community are enormous. I mean, it's something that I have to acknowledge. It's something that I underappreciated. I mean, I appreciated it, but I didn't appreciate it as much as I have now, because I think people want and need community. And it speaks to the sense of loneliness and being left behind and nihilism that we talked about earlier. But I think on par, it's always better to wait. I think and a lot of times projects, this, will launch tokens that aren't necessary at all. So, and there's so much noise in the channel when it comes to this. So on average, I would prefer not to see another token launched. I would prefer companies and teams work in a more traditional way. And I don't know that it's necessary to launch a token. You can find ways to incentivize people the way early startups have done that before with, early equity.
Okay. So let me actually challenge you on that. If the token is the equity, then I feel like every project has a token. It just may not be
that's different.
live
It's not
on
publicly
secondary
traded.
markets.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's my point. I think that's where I think it's problematic. Launching something so early, going public as a startup, I think that's problematic. That's what I mean.
I see. Yes, I think that is exactly the right framing. And surprisingly, nobody uses that, right? In DeFi, sort of thinking about launching the token as the going public moment, and really evaluating the pros and cons of that. So
yeah,
I only thought about that in this discussion.
Yeah, are we getting signal to go off stage?
We can wrap it up sometime in the next 3 minutes.
I'm happy not to wrap it up. I just want to make sure. Yeah, this is very complicated for me. These sort of digital stages.
I have it under control.
Yeah. Okay.
We have one or two more audience questions. We could take one more. So someone asked them, why do you think current money is not great? What defines great money for you? It's a bit of a topic.
Yeah. So this is this is a really tough question. I used to be fundamentally a sound money guy. I also recognize, the gold standard is a great example. Over time, Alan Greenspan made this argument, and he made the argument, again, Alan Greenspan went through a long transition, some might say opportunistic, self-serving transition from being a gold bug Randian to the head of the central bank, and really in some ways a transformative central bank chief. But he made the argument that really the gold standard is irrelevant, because in order to have a functioning gold standard, you need to have an honest government. And if you don't have an honest government, well, I guess he was talking about the Bretton Woods standard. I don't know. I'm sort of torn on this. I think the way our understanding of the gold standard and sound money is we idealize it, but it came with a lot of problems. Yeah. So in place of an institutional elite, we had a commercial elite who was what the people called the banking trust. There's a reason why bankers are so unpopular in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and why progressive populist movements grew up against the trust. So the issue for me tends to be power and the accumulation of power. I think it's a if I had to pick one, I would pick sound money. But that also is very self-serving, because I would benefit from such a model. And I don't know ultimately in the long term if it is sustainable. And I wonder, Hasu, to that point, you know what? I should say, I think one of the challenges we have with these types of conversations is everyone's always looking for the perfect model, but I tend to find that what happens in history is people are very clever, and they always find ways to upend any existing framework or model. And that always leads to revolution and renewal. So, the fiat model is clearly broken. sound money, the sound money model, whether it's in Bitcoin or gold, creates lots of inequities. This is where politics comes into the picture, and why you can never really get rid of people unless you have a world of machines. But if people have power, you need politics, because politics is what causes that renewal process where people can work things out. And war is politics by other means. So sometimes politics breaks down and you have open conflict, and that's just human. So I don't think there's an ideal model. I prefer a sound money model where I can save my money, but that model also comes with other costs. So,
okay, man, I'm so sad that we are out of time, because
it was good.
I also have a take on fiat money, but this is the end for us. Demetri, thank you so much for the discussion.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Please, everyone, check out Hidden Forces. Great podcast.
Hiddenforces.io. You can check out our episode library and go and geek out. It's a great program. Thank you, Hasu.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
So, Demetri, thanks again. And I also want to make sure that all of you also check out Hasu's podcast on Common Core. There's a lot of great insights in there. And I wish we had more time, because there's so many things we can dig into, but that just means we're going to definitely invite you back and continue the conversation. So,
all right,
Demetri,
guys.
Thanks again. And
thank you.
On to the next talk. So our last talk today is a panel on DeFi security and best practices. We're going to just be covering some things to keep in mind, the state of what's hackening in this ecosystem from a developer and security standpoint. And there's so many details that I'd rather let our panelists go into, including the introductions. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mariano, Sam, Aurelian, Emiliano, and Martin on stage, and Mariano will be moderating this chat, and I'll let him kick us off with the introductions to all of our panelists and himself. Welcome, Mariano.
Hey, Kartik. Thank you so much for having us here today.
We're excited to have you. I'll ask everybody to turn their videos on, and we can kick off with the chat.
Great. Okay, do we have everybody? Seems like we do. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for being here. This is extremely exciting for me. I'm calling this version 2 of the panel we had. I believe it was January 15th or somewhere about then. And I remember saying that not a lot was happening at the beginning of the year. And certainly a lot has happened since. So I'm really excited to talk to all of you about it. Let's do introductions first. Sam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone. So I'm Sam. I'm now a research partner at Paradigm, where I basically still do the same thing that I've always done, which is review code, keep the ecosystem safe as always. That's about it.
Great. Morelian?
Hey, good to be here. I previously worked as an auditor at Consensus Diligence and was one of the original members of that team. And now I'm at Optimism, helping to secure that protocol and loving it.
Cool. Can't wait for that to go live. I think everybody.
Yeah.
Cool. Emiliano?
Hey, thanks to be here with, I would say, beautiful minds in DeFi. Obviously, we have many others. So I'm the co-founder of DeFi Italy, a community around DeFi in Italy. And let's say I'm a part-time builder in DeFi, and let's say I help projects during security incidents. And I'm also a strategist in the Wire group.
Excellent. And finally, we have Tincho.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. Tincho, I'm a security researcher at OpenZeppelin. I've been a security researcher for the last couple of years already. And yeah, excited to be here.
Great. And just in case, my name is Mariano Conti. I was at Maker for a few years, and now just part of the Ethereum and DeFi ecosystem. Cool. So let's kick this off. So this past few months, at least personally, I've seen a lot of activity. Rug pulls and just exploits, mainly on Binance Smart Chain, and I think I've seen a mix of exploits that we almost do not see anymore on Ethereum, for example. A mix of things that we've already learned and don't do anymore on Ethereum, as well as straight up copies of other protocols, sometimes with one or two lines changed just to become 100% an intentional rug pull, right? I want to start with that. What has been your experience? Do you think it's fair to say that most of the rug pulls are now happening on other chains other than Ethereum, or do you disagree with that?
I would start saying that there are different scenarios, I would say. In that you have like rug pulls in which perhaps the owners of the admins of the project have thought about rug pulling the project since day one, and that's just plainly a scam, and people should definitely try to avoid that. Then we have like these common or simple bugs that you mentioned, and that can be the case of new developers jumping into the ecosystem to these new side chains that appear, and they are like just coding their projects and they fall for the same mistakes that we have had in many times already in Ethereum. But a different scenario I think that could be interesting to think about is there have been bugs in which they are so obvious to be true, right? So in some sense, I don't know, I don't want to believe this, but it could be the case that we are like seeing rug pulls, but masked as hacks. So you launch a project, you introduce a subtle bug or not so subtle, and yeah, then you get hacked. But at the end of the day, you're just rug pulling your users, but just you're saying that you got hacked. I don't know.
There was this case of a Uniswap fork that they just directly removed the invariant, right? The X times Y equals K. They just removed it, and that cannot just be a simple bug, right? That has to be intentional.
Yeah, I would say, Mariano, that as Tincho mentioned, there are, let's say, it's not so easy to describe all the scenarios. I'm more, let's say, oriented to say that there is so excitement in DeFi, and especially in this, let's say, scaling solution like BSC, Polygon, and any other, let's say, scaling solution, that people, new developers, new builders rush on, let's say, build their own new protocol, maybe, leaking some information about other protocols that are successful, and maybe because they lack of experience or skillness, let's say they remove some feature without doing the, let's say, tests that are required. And definitely we have scenarios where, maybe some developer remove an underscore, so you see that the code, let's say, seems to be identical. So that's probably is for sure a rug pull. But I think that most of the bugs that we saw, or the, let's say, incident, are related to this excitement. And another interesting, let's say, pattern that we saw is that since there are so many variants, so many forks now, it's difficult to also for those new protocols to stay updated with the changes of the original ones. So for instance, if you fork a Wyron, if you fork any other protocol, and maybe a Wyron discover an issue, it's easy to say that probably it will be exploited in the next minutes on the sidechain. So this is, let's say, it's a common problem for open source, and because of this excitement, is not easy to, let's say, to solve it. So I always think about it's okay to, let's say, contain this excitement and be more safe, or it's, let's say, healthy to have those protocols to be, to have some impact. Obviously, from a user perspective, it's better to be safe, but at the same time, let's say you move innovation in this way. So it's not easy to answer.
Anybody else want to chime in on this?
I feel like good points have been made, and it's hard to say a lot about what's happening exactly when rug pulls happen. The one point I jotted down was to not necessarily assume maliciousness when stupidity is sufficient as an explanation. I think that's probably very often the case, what's going on. And then you also have evil at times.
What about something that happened very recently, like Iron Finance? I don't know if anybody's aware of what happened. Would you consider that a rug pull? Would you consider that an economic exploit? Would you consider it that's just the way algorithmic stablecoins go? It's like they work until they don't. What do you think?
It seems to me like that, without having done a formal analysis, but it feels like if you publish the rules, one thing, if you publish the rules, somebody will find a way to break the rules, but you don't even need somebody intentionally trying to find a way to break the rules. It's just not. I think humans are more complex than we can describe with an algorithm, and it's asking for trouble, and history seems to be bearing that out.
I mean, someone feel free to jump in and correct me, but I'm not sure the Iron incident was a rug pull. Like, the founders didn't make money off it, right? It just sort of collapsed on its own from all the selling pressure. At least as far as I understand. I also haven't done an analysis myself, but
yeah, that's as well what I understood. But I don't know if there was any new information. I just scrolled past a few tweets, and there were mentions of both. But yeah, in the case of an algo stablecoin, most likely just fell to its regular old bank run.
The funny thing is, there's many ways to make. This is not even an allegation, but what could, you can just short the token, right? And so, I mean, a very roundabout rug pull would be to just create an algorithmic stablecoin, assume it will eventually die, and find some way to benefit off of its eventual death, very indirectly, not necessarily through a hack or anything. So I think the upshot there is just it's really, really hard to identify, to understand motivations and who's acting in what way in this world.
In terms of actual security, let's focus on EVM style blockchains. Have you seen anything new, any new developments that can help us prevent certain bugs, that can guide the security community forward? Anything that you've seen that caught your eye? Or are we more or less the same as we were when the year started?
I think that from a review perspective, I mean, tooling improved a lot. And let's say we have more complete tools, not at all comprehensive yet. We still need, let's say, developer adoption of those tools, but we saw the rise of, let's say, companies, groups, new startups, DAOs or whatever, that try to help take a look on the code that you build.
So maybe not so professionals, but let's say like an audit where you have very vertical people that, let's say, do many processes to understand if your code is performing as you expect and giving you a different perspective. I'm talking about the initiative where also you, Mariano, participated, also Sam, where you have a contest, a protocol or a new builder, let's say, put an allocation and say, hey, please try to break it. Or other initiative like the one that I started, and let's say it's not going as I expected, to be honest. So Reviews DAO, where people try to collaborate on reviewing the code each other. But alongside to that, I see that many protocols now collaborate more than before. So because they need to integrate to have success, we see that many protocols look to each other code. So I would say that from a tooling perspective, we are still in an early phase. Also, if, let's say, tenderly with simulation, with all the tooling that help to, troubleshoot the issue, it accelerate the diagnosis of a security incident or maybe before. But I'm very happy to see those, let's say, initiatives that try to fix the supply of security experts, and also the lack of, let's say, security practice for new builders.
Yeah,
go ahead.
On top of what Emiliano was saying, that I super agree with that. I think, yeah, that we have had the developments. I wouldn't say specifically like technical developments, but I still think that the security landscape keeps improving and maturing. Perhaps we cannot catch up with so many new developments that happen in the ecosystem as a whole, like forks, sidechains, layer 2 and everything. But I think that the white hat hacker space is like maturing. We have managed bug bounties now. I think that the Immunify people are actually doing a pretty good job. I think on the operations and monitoring tools are also improving, like Emiliano mentioned tenderly. We have OpenSublim Defender as well, doing some great advances. Security tooling also, I think that Trail of Bits and Consensus and Sartora are doing a cool job there, and I think they are contributing a lot. I also want to stress what Emiliano said, like I think that projects are starting talking to each other, sharing experiences. Many of them have been hacked and they have learned lots from those hacks, and they can share and get together and do like help groups after hacks on what they have learned. And also there are projects onboarding new security specialists into their team. I think that Morelia and Optimism might be an instance of that, but probably other projects as well are starting to take security more seriously, knowing that audits are not enough, that there is a whole comprehensive thing that you have to do, and like onboarding a security specialist might be a good step forward.
Just a data point to what Tincho said. The market for security grew a lot, not maybe as we need, but for instance, a company like Immunify now is offering 24 millions of bounties, collecting most of the protocols. So for me, this centralization is a good, let's say, indicator that not only the most famous or the biggest protocols see that this is an important, let's say, investment that you have to do for many perspectives. User continue to have your protocol live, etc., etc. But I think that there are opportunities for newcomers to not only, I stress this point many times, to work in DeFi, to express your talent in DeFi. You don't have you don't have to fork a protocol to do a new protocol. You can collaborate in many ways, also gradually. Okay, and security is something so needed and is a very good, let's say, place to learn a lot of things that help you maybe in the future to design a more robust and solid protocol. So I stress out that we need more and more people here, and many companies are trying to build on top of this. And I'm aware also of new startups, new protocols that try to build something that, let's say, it's a security protocols in terms of, let's say, in a decentralized way.
About that,
I think. Oh,
no, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Tincho and Emiliano mentioned. Immunify, especially, is I think going to do wonders for security in Ethereum in the coming months or years, if the time scale is. Mostly because we're slowly pulling over all of the talent in the current website security space over into Ethereum, where we're currently experiencing such a shortage of security experts. I think one other thing I want to call out really quickly on the topic of tooling, or at least tooling adjacent, is other languages for the EVM that are being worked on right now. The Ethereum Foundation, I believe, is working on like a Rust-inspired language. I don't know if it's FE or if you pronounce it Iron or however, but that's seems really promising. And just a couple of weeks ago, George was pointing out to me a compiler by Hyperledger called Solang, which compiles Solidity, but using an alternative backend. It's built on LLVM, I believe. So I think this isn't talked about as much, but I rag on Solidity sometimes for some of the more interesting language features they just decided to introduce. But I think just in general, having the flexibility of language that is designed with all the lessons we learned in mind over the past couple of years could be a really big point as well in the coming months.
I think Reachlang is also worth calling out there. They're doing some interesting work. I can't say I know it very well, but they're really working on tackling the problem of secured blockchain development, and I think it's worth watching.
Reach is actually really fascinating because they take the concept of like they compile an entire basically like state machine down into the program. So like instead of defining individual functions for like a rock paper scissors game, you would define the state machine of the rock paper scissors game itself, and then the compiler would generate all of the state transitions for you. It's really interesting. You should definitely take a look, a deeper look if you haven't yet.
Do you know how it compares gas-wise, for example? I know that usually with these kinds of languages, you try to be as specific as you can.
Unfortunately, I don't think gas is on the top of their roadmap right now. The way the Reach compiler works is it takes the Reach code and compiles it into Solidity, or I guess transpiles maybe it would be, and then it lets the Solidity compiler handle the rest. So I would imagine gas I would say at best is equal. You might get some optimizations from the fact that the Reach compiler can perform certain transformations that as a human developer you can't, but I wouldn't hedge my bets on that.
I have a specific question about tooling and security. Has anybody seen out in the wild, we always talk about a protocol, maybe looking at the mempool directly for any transaction that would alter the state of their smart contracts in a way that's unseen, and having a transaction ready to maybe stop the protocol or pause it in some way. Has anybody actually seen that in the wild happen, or is that still mostly just theoretical?
I haven't seen it, but definitely sounds like nice, right? Like useful. But no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, honestly, we talked, I think, also at the very first panel that we have. I remember a tweet that I did about that. But I think that few players, like for instance Block Native, did a great job on the mempool analysis, both from a, let's say, reporting perspective, but also from a tooling. And I think that the missing part here is how to understand if those transactions are harmful. So as soon as we have the first line of defense, also if, let's say, the incident will happen anyway, is, let's say, a proactive monitoring. Okay, so you know that it's gonna to happen. And so you can put in place all the mechanisms, also from a communication perspective. Being able for, let's say, take an action before that one is settled on chain, I see that it's still futuristic, but it can be realized. I would say that I would like to see some, let's say, pattern that protocol can use to have, let's say, big red buttons. If we are able to define some sort of standard way to, let's say, put a protocol in a, let's say, sandbox modalities, sandbox way that is blocked for somehow, so the user cannot deposit anymore, cannot withdraw, and whatever, it would be easier to attach, you know, some sort of automation when we are able to understand if a transaction is harmful.
Actually a really key point about, you know, how exactly do you define or how do you design the pausing mechanism for your protocol, right? Because the worst thing I think for all of us is when there's a bug in a protocol and there's no way to pause it. You have to do the white hat hack on chain. But of course, if you go to the other extreme, you know, users might not really like it if there's this master switch that pauses the entire protocol that, you know, you can't get out at all. You're sort of at the whims of the development team. So that's something that I try to really drive the point home when I'm working with new groups. It's like, you know, have you really considered how exactly do you want to pause your protocol? Have you considered adding, you know, some sort of bare minimum failsafe where you don't let users in and you don't let business operations happen, but they can still exit if they want to. But on the point of, you know, is there any tooling that lets you react to, you know, transactions in the mempool? Isn't that what Open Zeppelin Defender does? I was smiling because I was like, man, surely Tinto was going to talk about this, because I think you have to do it manually, but I think you can set like specific conditions to watch for. Like if this transaction touches my contract and the new state looks like this compared to the old state, then do this thing, which may or may not be like fire off this new transaction, something like that.
Kind of, but it doesn't work with the mempool yet. But definitely would be a nice extension. What you can do now is, yeah, you can, with Defender, you can monitor transactions, you can see how they impact on your contracts. And once you have those, you can have automatic actions, which we call auto tasks. You can have like automatic triggers right from an alert and react on something on your protocol. So I don't know, if you see that the balance of your contract has decreased for some amount of money, then you launch automatically a transaction that pauses the whole system or something like that. It's pretty customizable, but it doesn't work. As long as I know, it doesn't work with transactions in the mempool.
And would it? Oh, sorry, Mariano.
Go.
No, I would say that would be a great addition. I mean that many players already have speculative execution for those transactions. What I want to add to what Sam said is that I saw some protocol that basically let the user decide if they want to continue to operate when the, let's say, protocol is in danger. So basically, you can opt out from the, okay, the system is halted, but if I want, I can override just for myself and do the action. The other side is that having the red button that is pressable maybe from you know, let's say, this automation could be also a risk for, let's say, denial of service. Because if I want to stop a protocol to let's say, because I'm a competitor, I'm evil or whatever, if the attacker knows how you react to those dangers, it can, let's say, continuously halt you. So it's not easy, I think, to design a system that automatically pose your protocol, because there are many other scenarios that could arise that, let's say, maybe you are not in danger, but there is someone that continues to press the red button.
I will keep asking if we continue doing these panels. Maybe one day you will say yes. This is it. We build it and use it. But on that note, even if you were able to access the mempool, it wouldn't really matter, right? In a world of flashbots and dark pools and everything, if an attacker wants to not broadcast a transaction, they can just use a private service, right? So kind of defeats the purpose. And on that note, what do you think about projects like flashbots, everything that's going around, minor extractable value? Is there anything special that DeFi developers, security-minded individuals in the space need to think about, do differently? Is the future, is flashbots, the future, the standard of interacting with the Ethereum?
If I'm not wrong, I mean, the things that you can do with flashbots, I might be mistaken, and perhaps you have some more ideas if you have been working with the team, but the things that you can do with flashbots are things that the miners could have already done in the past. It's just like we are kind of facilitating them the job and perhaps extracting some profit from it in the meantime. But many of the dynamics that you can do with in MEV is just like facilitating the miners that job. And so any kind of attack coming from that, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm thinking it right, it could have been executed by a smart miner in the past. I think that flashbot is just like paving the way for it to happen in an easier way and more sustainable for the ecosystem.
That's true, Tincho, but it opens the opportunity for others to leverage the miner's position. So miners maybe doesn't have the time, the knowledge, the money to invest on, let's say, strategies on DeFi that can benefit for, let's say, front running others or, let's say, executing before. So researchers, for instance, also Yearn, when he's executing harvest for those strategies, want to be hidden, because otherwise could be a target of sandwiches attacks, back running, or whatever. So having let's say a party like a miner that offer you to be hidden during the execution is something that works a lot. So I would say that MEV is obviously can be used how you describe, so basically attack or whatever, but at the same time help to protocols to avoid issue, to be, let's say, to see before the settlement a specific transaction. But for protecting your protocol, this is not the only, let's say, solution that you can use. I see, because I'm just more close to that, for instance, Yearn implemented in their system, let's say, thresholds. And right now with the 0.42 volt system, you can have health checks on, let's say, the harvest that are the most delicate operation. So if you exit from some boundaries, the transaction will revert at all. So it's important also, just to complete what we said before, that you as a protocol also think about, let's say, some thresholds of, let's say, safeness of your protocol. So maybe bigger deposits are not possible. So you have to execute in 2 steps along with withdrawals. So there is not only one solution, but there are many that you can put to cover many of the let's say, attacks or threats that you may have. But anyway, just coming back to MEV, I think that it's a great thing. However, if you go on the explode.flashpot.net, from, let's say, the last year, we grow from the extraction value from 0 to basically 1 billion. So that's also offloaded the network from many price gas action. So I think that there are many positive, side effects of this stuff. Also, if I don't like too much, because certified that miners have a privileged position.
That's true.
I wanted to add, like, for the protocol devs listening, that on the general topic of MEV, I think that there are emerging design spaces and mechanism designs that are worth investigating. I think the two that come to mind are, I think it's called MintX and CowSwap, which are approaches to implementing a DEX that is resistant to MEV in ways, and essentially using batching to bring together people on both sides of the trade. You think of it like an alternative to Uniswap. You bring together people on both sides of the trade. You have a certain amount of time for people to come in, and you don't have that that same kind of like sandwich attack dynamic that you tend to get with the AMM. And so it's not necessarily to call out those projects in particular, but I think increasingly it will be of the benefit to the protocol to be thinking about MEV resistant designs and new mechanisms that can improve the user experience and protect them against that kind of exploitation.
Interesting. We have a few questions from the chat, so we can start with that, or if anybody has anything else they want to say about MEV. Nope. Let's do a couple of questions. So on the topic of L2s that it's becoming more and more common, does anything change as you think about deploying contracts to L2 with regards to security?
Sure. Well, like one example that comes to mind is, especially if it's one thing if you're operating solely on a specific L2, it probably does not change too much depending on the platform itself. But I think an obvious example is bridging. And so with optimistic rollups, you tend to have a fraud window that you have first of all, you have like async cross domain calls. So there's some delay. You send your message from L1 to L2. You don't really get a response in the way that you do with a fully atomic transaction on just in the EVM. And you send your message off and you hope things go well on L2. So like an interesting example that came up recently was a project designing a bridge for their token, thinking about pausing mechanisms. So in the situation where you pause your bridge on L1 and pause your bridge on L2 because you have some problems there for whatever reason, they chose, and probably rightfully so, to leave there will be transactions in flight. So with Optimism's 7-day window, if they pause those two bridges, you don't want to have everybody who has tried to withdraw in the last week just have funds stuck when the bridge on L1 refuses to do anything and to process those transactions. So I think that a more asynchronous model, so that's a specific example of how a more asynchronous model is going to cause people to have to think a lot harder about some of their design decisions.
Anyone else? Something about L2? I know in the case probably optimistic rollups, like Arbitrum and Optimism are going to be, I don't know, this is my guess, but I think they're easier to use than something like CK rollups. That, at least for now, for what I've seen, they require a bit more, different languages, things like that. Do you think we're going to see more issues with the optimistic rollups just because we're going to see the same, copying of protocols and putting them in Optimism and Arbitrum and have the cycle go all over again? Fork, rock pull, fork, rock pull. Just going to take 7 days for the hackers to release their money.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
It will happen for sure, Mariano. So, I mean, we can prepare a little bit more. I'm really interested because we have here, Mariano, about the security aspects that you consider, or the security requirements that you consider when you cross the boundaries. So also just for the audience that we have, because many don't know what happens effectively when you cross the bridge. So you deposit, you send a message, you deposit something, just to be not so technical, but you deposit something on the bridge, and then what happens? So who execute the transaction or the state change on the other side? And it's a single entity. It can be censored. It can cheat. So there are many. I think there are many points, and I think that you are the most skilled to explain us, maybe with a very LE5, especially also where Optimism position itself in this landscape.
Okay.
You can insult me later,
It is a big topic, and I actually have not got as much practice explaining it as I would like, but I guess I'll say, like, so one thing you're alluding to is, okay, so first, so maybe at the the nuts and bolts is that, or at the high level, sorry, we have you don't have, there's no reason that you have to use the messaging infrastructure that we've set up. If you're good at writing Merkle proofs, you can go ahead and create your own pair of messages to send things back and forth from L1 to L2 on Optimism. We've built that for people. We also have a contract that is fairly easy to inherit from, much like many of Zeppelin's things, which we call it OVM, cross-domain enabled, and it handles that kind of the permission layer. So you can import that, and you can protect all your functions to say, oh, this is the L1 contract that you put this into an L2 contract and say, okay, this is the only L1 contract that is allowed to send a message to us to execute some functionality, and you can vice versa, you can do the exact same thing. And then, to not go into too many of the details, but yes, there's an entity called the sequencer on Optimism that many people have heard about. And so it provides much of the throughput benefits that we have by centralizing this and having a big beefy node, much like you might have with a more centralized chain. However, we depend on the security provided by Ethereum to help us provide better decentralization guarantees. Censorship resistance as well is something that we have worked into the protocol. Although to be completely transparent, there's what I'd say like a progressive decentralization approach that we're taking. So at the outset, there is more centralization, and we will be taking or like reducing that over time. Deeply baked into the DNA of the Optimism team is the idea of exiting to community. So that is very much on the roadmap. And I think that, like, I've always generally been in favor of having speed bumps and various safety features that you can take off over time, rather than starting with a, I don't know what you'd say, full speed ahead approach.
I see.
I want to touch on that because I've been asked that way too many times. So for a project that wants to launch, and this is not necessarily just for L2, there are many different ways of doing like a proper launch with, safeguards. What would you say the many different ways are, and which ones do you prefer? I'm talking about, restricting via the UI, for example, or adding actual restrictions on the smart contract, using allow lists, using upgradable proxies, things like that. Which ones do you prefer, and why?
I mean, I think my favorite is just adding a banner on the website that says, by using this, you acknowledge the risk of using this project and no responsibility to the authors. And that's I think you really nailed it there. The allow list is a big one. I know Yearn did that for their V2 launch, I believe. I think my favorite by far is probably just a cap on the total amount that can be deposited in the system, and then that either ramps up with time, or it gets adjusted by the team. The problem with the other methods, like a cap on individual accounts, is that it sort of becomes useless because anyone can, it's trivial to create a new account on Ethereum. You just transfer your funds elsewhere, and so it feels like the most bang for your buck to just put a hard cap on the total amount of assets in the protocol itself.
Yeah, I would second some on that, having caps, particularly on the total amount of money that the system can handle. I think it will make the system less attractive for criminals. So yeah, you won't have that much money deposited, and it might be safer. Having emergency shutdowns, knowing that the first versions can fail and might be a little bit more centralized. And in my opinion, that's fine. I'm also like a supporter of the slow decentralization model, and I think that works. And I've seen projects going down that road and succeeding. Monitoring, that's a huge thing that people that want to launch fast to mining should be doing as well. And publishing security contacts. A big red sign on your front end saying this is experimental, things can fail. Don't put your life savings on this protocol.
Yeah, I like a lot the, let's say, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So having, let's say, a staging environment like a beta for your protocol, especially if you, let's say, are already mature, like for instance, Wire, or also Idle Finance has, let's say, a separate section of the protocol of the application that is segregated, that basically allow you as a protocol to experiment. So in addition to, let's say, protect you from a security perspective, you also can test if what you are going to release is attractive enough and working backwards to improve it. And this is the example of Ape Tax. So with Yearn, before going to production, basically you test with the other strategies if your strategy is working good, and also you shout out to the users that, let's say, want to experiment with you and provide you a feedback. And with caps, these help a lot. So you have caps, but also a separate environment. It is not testnet, it's still mainnet, so real funds, and you test the changes that you are going to do. So I think that this is a very good approach. Honestly, I would like also to see more usage of the Ethereum testnet that we have. I don't want to say that, let's say, Covan ETH should have value. Honestly, it could have,
but we should use more other testnet or let's say staging environments, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Do you think after, I don't know, some DeFi projects are already 3 years old, well, maybe 2.5. Do you think any one of those would be okay to remove that big, use this protocol at your own risk? Or do you think no matter how much time passes that we should always put those disclaimers even on, the makers, compounds, Aves, Uniswaps?
I don't like, honestly, because it's a barrier for me. So I mean, if I'm already there, probably I know the risk. I don't, from a UX perspective, UI perspective, I don't. If you think also other, let's say, Web2 platforms, no one says so explicitly that you are, let's say, posing. I mean, I don't trust so much people that say it's all your liability, responsibility, or whatever. If something goes wrong, it's up to you. I think that is not working. It's working if you, let's say, beta, staging environment or whatever. But otherwise, it's like, okay, I get a car. I know that I can do an accident, but not every time that I turn on the car, hey, you know what? You can die. What? No, I want to drive the car because I like the car. I know that if I, maybe at the very early stages, but in general, from, let's say, from a UX perspective, I don't like a lot. I'm not a UX expert, absolutely not. But as a user, let's say, I don't like to see it.
I'll just also add on that I think, if you keep the alerts on, long-standing battle-tested projects, you run the risk of alert fatigue on users. And that's something that we should really be aiming to avoid as security experts is, if you flash an alert on every page, then none of the alerts are meaningful. So keep them, where they're absolutely needed and then remove them everywhere else.
That's a very good point. Okay, we have about 5 to 8 minutes left. So I have 2 last questions from the audience, which I think we can compress into one. So are there any other tools or resources you recommend for security best practices? And the other one is advice and tips for the hackers that are going to be working on DeFi integrations at HackMoney for the next 3 weeks. So free question for the 4 of you. You have any advice and tips or tools or resources?
I can chime in on the resources side. I think that all major security companies have been publishing lots of reading material and best practices. I think that if you read Page, if you read Consensus, if you read Open Zeppelin, if you read others, probably they will have as well. There are lots of good practices published and security recommendations and well-known attacks and so on. There are capture the flag challenges that will teach you about which are the bad practices and probably you can start thinking on how to solve them. Paradigm and some did one recently. We have the vulnerable DeFi, Ethernaut. I think there are plenty of resources out there in the community. The challenge is keeping them updated with the latest vulnerabilities and hacks that happen. So there are already other security researchers out in the space that are constantly publishing lists of incidents with exploit analysis and so on that are really, really good resources to keep an eye on and to constantly be reading to be aware of what are the latest hacks that you should be preventing.
I think if there's one piece of advice I'd want to give to the people working on integrations, it would be please do not use the spot price of an AMM as a price oracle we've talked about this for over a year now, and it's still happening. And just please do not use the spot price. It's not a price oracle. That's all I have to say.
Is there actually, because I've seen that so many times, would it make sense for somebody to just create a do not use the spotprice.com and put in some amount of information about why for everybody? Is there some way to go and read about why you don't want to do this?
Mariano, create it. I will support you. Like DICE that's created. No, I mean, yes, for sure. Don't use them is a good approach. Probably we will, let's say, just expose not directly spot prices, but always, TWAP or other, let's say, estimator of the prices. So it will be, let's say, if you are skilled enough, you know how to get the spot price directly. So that could be a good approach. So basically rising the barrier for doing that. But coming back to your previous question, I would like to see two practices starting to become more trendy in this industry. First one is shadowing. I would like to see, if you see practical stuff and let's say practice a lot, you learn a lot. So in this sense, I will shout out to everyone. If you wanted to participate to, let's say, to some late stage war room or whatever, I would like that you contact me, or anyway, shout out on Twitter, because you will learn a lot. And second, role plays. I would like to see experiments in testnet where we simulate past accident. So you not only read about the events, what generated them, and how we solved them, but at the same time to try to repeat those stuff and experiment how to react. That's very important also for new teams. So simulate security incident. So those two things, at least for me, was really helpful. For many things that I did in the past, before, let's say, dive deep in security, I read on my own what was happening with ETH, just dive deep on what's going on immediately, and also pairing with someone else, maybe more expert than me, and at first shadowing and then participating actively. That's something really, there are some risks. Obviously, an evil party could, let's say, doing those stuff. But I think that if we use, let's say, for instance, a kernel program where we have fellowship, when we know the party, okay, we don't know 100%, but we start those training programs with shadowing, with whatever, that's really effective. And honestly, I discussed it with some peers in Wayern during the, let's say, Y Academy initiatives. So that's definitely something that you have to do.
Excellent. Morelian, any last tips?
Yeah, keep it simple. Just like, don't add every single feature that you can think of. Write less solidity, and be safe out there, kids.
That's great advice. Awesome. Well, I think we're at the top of the hour, so we covered plenty. I want to thank Morelian, Sam, Emiliano, and Tincho for this awesome panel. Thank you, the four of you. I was waiting for this ever since we did the first one. And thank you so much to ETH Global. Congratulations for all the hackers. Hope you create some great projects out there. I'll be looking at them. And I don't know if Kartik is around.
Yep, I just want to make sure that I also get to thank you, Mariano, for not only just moderating this chat, but also facilitating a super interesting conversation. And a lot of good notes here at the end, just advice for all the attendees for the hackathon. I think for we'll make this like an open call. Whoever buys, don't use spotprice.com first. Now is in charge of making that website work. So for those of you who are listening as hackers and you're still waiting on a project, well, there's a incredible challenge for a one-day project for you. That could be an easy submission that'll definitely help a lot more people over the course of the next year for any DeFi project. So Sam, thanks so much for suggesting that. And yeah, I want to thank everybody here for giving us their time today. And we'll see you all over the next few weeks and show you what comes out of that 1,000-person hackathon with DeFi. So thanks, everybody. And with that, I just got to say one last thing, and that is happy hacking. We'll follow up with everybody on Discord from here on, and you'll be able to track the rest of the event and the rest of the summits and everything else on defi.eTHglobal.co. So hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see some of you at the team formation session later tonight. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy some lo-fi beats.